Late night boxing talks. Yo, so StreamYard now has a feature that allows you to actually play music that you upload to your videos, which I think is very cool. Let's see if I can access it. Well, they actually allow you to play music during your which I'm going to be playing with a little bit in the future. I got a couple of tunes that I wouldn't mind playing. Like this one. Let me see. Yeah, see, like you you could have music playing now in the background. Jack Nuff, what's good? Country, what's good? Eddie, what's good? And now, they actually allow you to play music now during your live streams, which is cool. Because it could kind of give it like a little bit of a vibe. I wouldn't have it playing throughout the entire live per se. I would play with it for certain moments, things like that. But you can actually play music now, which I think was very good of StreamYard. It was very smart of them to add that feature because I wasn't able to add music to video excerpts until after the live was over. Whereas now you have that option if you have the WAV file, because it has to be a WAV file. I don't know if it can just be a simple MP3. I think it can. But now you can play music during your lives, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to be doing that. Just wanted to show you guys that you can actually do that now. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, we got a couple of subjects I want to talk about here on the channel. Couple of things that are going on. Tommy fumbles. He once again screwed the pooch, messed up the bag. And you know what? I think I will play the music during that. Why not? I think I will play the music during that because that's I think that beat adequately characterizes the overall silliness of the situation. You kind of hear that lag. But yeah, like, Tommy fucking Fury, man. Tommy fumbles. He's a guy who, out of this entire situation with Jake Paul, it's like Jake, you just making Jake look more and more legitimate with how illegitimate you are. The music's a little bit distracting, I won't lie. But out of that entire situation between Jake and Tommy, it really has benefited Jake in the sense that because Tommy is not the consummate professional that he was expected to be, because if anybody was expected to be the consummate professional in when it comes to those two, it was Tommy. You're one of the fighting Furies. You're not a social media influencer moonlighting as a boxer. Yet 2 times in a row, Jake gave him the opportunity, and it was Tommy's end of it for whatever reason, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Sorry-ass excuses are just sorry-ass excuses. When you always have a problem, it begins to look a certain way. Before, you pulled out because he was sick. It is what it is. And now, oh, well, you can't travel to the United States. And once again, it just is what it is. It's not even that these are not credible situations that could remove you from the fight so much as, regardless of whatever, it looks like what it looks like. It looks like you're not the real thing and you're the problem. That maybe this Jake Paul fight makes you nervous because Jake Paul told him that I would fight you in the United Kingdom for $500,000. And Tommy Fury starts doing the risks versus rewards things. Oh, I don't get out of bed for $500,000. You're not going to tell me that they're paying you at BT in Queensbury well over $500,000 to fight those people. You're not. Those guys you're fighting, like seriously, $500,000 should be right up your alley. More importantly, this is not a real boxer you're fighting. This is a YouTuber turned boxer. You're not supposed to be treating the situation this way. You least of all that you're one of the fighting Furies. You know what I mean? That $500,000 to fight a YouTuber for a guy who doesn't even have 10 pro fights, that should be all right. That should be a good payday. But Tommy starts doing the risks versus rewards thing to where it's like, oh, well, I don't get out of bed for that kind of money. And it's silly. It's like, bro, like, you want to fight this dude or not? Do you want to fight this dude or not? Because you just looking at this fight and you're treating this fight as if there isn't another side to this fight when you're the consummate professional. By all rights, you should look at this fight as I'm going to knock him out, and after that, I will receive an instant profile boost for having done so, whereas you're laying it all on the fight as if you're entering into a risky fight to where, no, I need to get paid to fight Jake. I got to get paid. I got to get, what? I mean, really? It's silliness, man. It's sheer silliness. Now I'm going to open up the chat to the panel to talk about a couple of subjects. And once again, y'all know the rules of engagement. I don't need 10 guys trying to talk over each other. And if your mic situation is fucked, if you're at the park or the diner or some kind of crowded bathroom, I'm sorry, we don't need the choppy audio, you know. So let's just fucking not waste each other's time. What's goody, Martin? What's goody, Mr. T? Monday, we will be joined by reigning IBF champion Sonny Edwards, IBF Flyweight champion, who's going to be talking about the Julio Cesar Martinez unification match that seems to be underway, seems to be all but done. Very important fight. The very best fight to make in the flyweight division, in my opinion. And we're going to be talking about that on Monday. That'll be Monday afternoon in America, Monday evening in the United Kingdom. On Tuesday, I'm going to be joined by one of my personal favorites. Been following her career for a million fucking years, Chantel Cameron. I've been following her career since she was called Wham Bam Chan. She's now called Capo, but I've been following her that long that she's called Wham Bam Chan in those days. You know what I mean? Jay, you ever thought about putting your lives after they're done in Spotify as a podcast? It's something I have to look into because I do want to diversify the revenue. If there's any money in it, then I'll probably do it. I was goody Sawab, was goody Country.
Yo, Julius.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Sawab? What's up, Jules?
Chilling. So I want to go to Sawab.
What's up,
I want to
everyone?
start.
How you guys?
You got Tommy Fury. He says, Jake offered to fight him in the UK for $500,000, right? Tommy says, well, no, I don't get out of bed for $500,000. What do you make of that?
Bro, it's just a Fury doing a Fury shit, isn't it? Just a Fury being a Fury. Talking bullshit.
Pretty much.
Second time he pulled out of a YouTuber. Bro, Jake Paul is a YouTuber. He's been doing it for 3 years, bro. And you've been apparently doing it since birth. As you came out punching out your mom's vagina. You know what I'm saying? Bro, how much do you, my question to Tommy Fury, Tommy Fumbles, bro, how much do you get paid from Frank Warren? How much did he pay you?
That's the question that I have, Sawab, that like when he fighting them guys, those guys that have losses in the double digits, does he expect us to believe that he's getting 7 figures to fight those guys?
Probably you would get 100K, maybe 70, 80K, no more than that.
Yeah, and it's insane. Country, what do you think? He says $500,000, and I understand that in some ways it's a big fight, but it's a YouTuber. It's a YouTuber.
He's full of it, Jules. He just doesn't want to fight. That's all it is. If he really wanted to fight, he would have did it by now. It wouldn't have been all this hoopla, all this BS. He would have made it through the, not getting admitted into the U.S. and all that. He would have found a way through that, and the fight would have happened already. But he doesn't.
He's got his visa. He just has to go.
One at a time. Country, do you think he's in other words, when you look at it, Country, do you see a duck?
Yes, I do. I don't know what it is, but I do. Because I'm afraid if he loses, that his reputation is whatever little reputation he has is gone because of his family. He's gonna have to live in his house for a year with the shades drawn and never come out. I got a new nickname for him. I call him Tommy No Nuts.
Country, it's not even that. He would never listen. People will not let him live. He pulled out whatever due to injury. Maybe some people gave him some slack. Maybe okay, fair enough. You got injured. What's your fucking excuse? Second time, all you have to do go to the embassy and pick up your visa. That's all it apparently is.
So Wab, that's what I want to ask you. Hold on, one at a time. So Wab, that's what I want to ask you. That the first time he said he had a chest infection, right? And you're like, you already kind of get like, because it's like, bro, it's a YouTuber though. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, this is not a real blue chip prospect, some guy who was in the amateurs and it's a YouTuber, you know what I mean? It's a social media.
Jules,
And hold on, one at a time. And he pulled out with the chess thing, whatever. And now it's the, oh, well, you can't come to America thing. In your opinion, though, is it a duck to you? Like, is it like, bro, like you're ducking?
Of course it's a duck, bro. Even this is what I was getting to. The first time, maybe people will give you, okay, you were injured, had to pull out. Fair enough. What's your fucking excuse the second time? Julius, people have been, even though he pulled out the first time, people are asking him and even telling him you're ducking Jake Paul. When you fight, watch all his interviews since he ducked that fight. Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul, Jake Paul. People are mentioning his name to him. And he can't live it out. He will, I don't know, but bro, I think he's either gonna commit suicide after this. You know what I mean? People are gonna keep bringing that shit.
What's going on? Let me go to Drew. In a lot of ways, it feels like, career suicide, because it's like this is causing damage to your would-be boxing career before it even gets off the ground. Because it's not like it's gotten off the ground; it hasn't. People seen his fights. They don't think he looks good, irrespective of whatever's going on with Jake. Just you and looking at you and what you're doing. A lot of people think he sucks. I tried to give him some slack because I'm like, well, guy doesn't have a lot of fights. But I have to start admitting that, no, I mean, when I watch him, he does kind of suck. Drew, you heard the reasons that he gave. That, the first time he had a chest infection. The second time he can't come to America. They seem like legitimate reasons. They do. But in your opinion, is he ducking Jake Paul?
I think he is a part of it's duck, Jules, and as a part of it is it's just he's a Fury. This is par for the course on the Fury behavior. I just want to say real quick, what up, champ? How we doing out there, Swab? What's up, champ?
What's up? How you guys doing? I just want to mention to everyone, by the way, Eid Mubarak to all my brothers. I hope you guys have fun. I'm just driving to Birmingham to meet the family for tomorrow. So,
no problem.
Yeah, no, Jules. But like I said, Jules,
Eid Mubarak, man.
Like I said, this is par for the course for the Furies. I don't know if anybody caught the breaking news. Keyshawn Davis, unfortunately, is out for this next week. It sucks.
I heard.
But yeah, like, what do you think, Jules? This is Fury behavior, 101.
Well, let me say this real quick, fellas. I think deep down inside, he feels that he actually is unsure whether he can win or not.
I'm going to say this. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. You chose to get involved with a YouTuber. You understand? The only reason this YouTuber and you as a conversation is because you chose to be a party to that. So when you go to the circus, you're going to see clowns. When you start hanging out with clowns, you may be confused for one. And the way I look at it is, even if your reasons are legitimate reasons that you can't fight, you should have never attached your name to his to begin with. You shouldn't. Yeah. You shouldn't have.
Like, who mentioned who first, Jules?
I honestly.
Let me tell you. It was basically Tommy Fury, because obviously he's new to boxing. He hasn't had that many fights. So people were telling him, why don't you fight Jake Paul? And then he called out Jake Paul. Like, I'll fight Jake Paul. He's easy for me and this and that. So Jake Paul came back because he saw, okay, it's Tommy Fury's, this is Tyson Fury's brother. Maybe there might be something I can push it. That's where it started from as far as I know. And you have to rate Jake Paul. He's fighting Rahman's brother, son. I think Rahman Jr. Bro, rate the balls on this guy. He's delusional, but he has that confidence. But I don't know, bro. I don't know. You have to rate him.
Let me read the super chat. A Fury family coat of arms is a clogged toilet because they're full of shit. What I mean is that, if you're a serious professional, there are lots of serious professionals out there, right? And not all of them made a decision to get involved with Jake. Not all of them decided that, I'm going to make it my mission to do a fight with this guy. And with a lot of these professionals, it didn't become a thing. But because you did that, that now your name is all tied up to his, regardless of what your reasons are, whether they're legitimate or not, you look stupid. It's making you look stupid. You never had to get involved in this. If you're a serious professional, you don't actually need Jake Paul. But now you're treating this as if it's it's a major fight. You know, I don't get out of bed for $500,000.
Can I give you an example? Can I give you an example of a true professional?
Yeah.
Do you know Vidal Riley?
Yeah.
He was KSI's trainer.
Yeah.
And now he's at Sky Sports and he's fighting. He's a cruiserweight. He was there for all those. He was a trainer for Gibb when Jake Paul fought him. He was a trainer for Deji when Deji fought him. Same thing with the KSI. For both of his fights, he was the coach. Him, as a professional, he didn't want to attach his name to Jake Paul because he knows he's not on his level. Now that after a couple of years, now he's training. Vidal Riley was looking to fight Hasim Rahman Jr. He said in one of the podcasts, Trilogy's podcast, I'm looking to fight Hasim Rahman Jr. And look now, Jake Paul's fighting to that level. So now, if Jake Paul beats Hasim Rahman Jr., he can face Vidal Riley. And Vidal Riley has a profile in the UK because of KSI. So,
I mean, when you look at it this way, and to your point that I did see Vidal Ridley, and yeah, you know, he didn't make it his mission that, I'm going to call out other social media influencers at or around my weight for a payday, because it's a serious boxing career to where I have to develop. I have to go through the gears. I have to fight a certain level of fighters. It's not all just, I'm ready to cash out. And what makes Tommy a weirdo is, yo, dog, are you cashing out? Because it feels like you cashing out. You know, it feels like you're in a risks rewards situation with Jake Paul, and it shouldn't feel that way. That's saying that, let's say you had a social media influencer in one of the lower weights, and they called out a Keyshawn Davis, for example. I don't think it would play out this way. I think it would be like, okay, I'm going to go in there and beat him up. What's it pay? Got it. Bet. I was going to make that anyway. And once I beat him, I immediately reap the benefit of beating someone with a profile. Tommy should be looking at it like that, bro, it's the real reward here is not the purse that you get for this fight, even though it's likely more than you're making. But it's not. That's not the real reward. The real reward is being the one that beats Jake and getting that profile boost. And you're treating it like a Spence Crawford or like a Okoli versus Breeders kind of situation. Like, well, no, I got to get paid. It's a YouTuber, my guy.
Jules, the funny thing is,
what gives him the edge, Jake Paul the edge, even though he's a YouTuber, is he's got absolutely nothing to lose.
He doesn't. If he loses, if Jake Paul even lands a good right hand, you know, it's already like, Jake Paul decked the shit out of you, bro.
And he's got to be coming off a confident high from knocking out that MMA guy. What's his name?
Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, he's flattened that dude.
No, the thing is this, though, Jules, that like Tommy Fury's cashing out before he even began to cash in.
That's what I mean.
Right.
That's what I mean. That like, if you're a young, hungry up-and-comer, one, you already have more of a profile than your average 5-0 or 7-0 up-and-comer. Because of your namesake. Whose mic is that?
Not mine.
All right. You already have more of a profile because of your namesake, that you're a Fury. So you already have press because of that. You know what I mean? If you're hungry, though, you don't look at Jake Paul as, I gotta. No. It's I'm gonna whoop his fucking ass. And when I whoop his ass, that's another profile boost. Instead, Tommy is treating it like it's a real for real super fight. Like, bro, it's not a super fight. You're supposed to be the consummate professional, not all this haggling with an influencer. And that's what it's become. That's what it is. It's like, bro, you know what I mean? Now, I like the attitude from Hasim Rahman Jr. I saw some things like he said, I'm going to knock him the fuck out. Like, I went easy on you in sparring, bro. I'm going to knock you the fuck out. That's the attitude that you kind of supposed to have, that like, yo, dog, like, I ain't in here with Jay Opataya. I ain't in here with Richard Riakporhe. It's Jake Paul, bro. Just stop.
Exactly.
I
just want to say,
think about what you just said.
Do you know how many people? One second, Lenny. Do you know how many people want Jake Paul to lose? Do you know how badly people in the UK, people in the US, they hate Jake Paul because of the type of dickhead he used to be when he was a YouTuber, and now, especially now when he's a boxer knocking out people, he's even a bigger dickhead. So my point is, if you knock this dickhead out, your profile is going to be huge in the biggest, I think, market in the UK and the US. So
But
imagine
you know
that.
what? So,
but think about what you just said.
One at a time.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Drew.
Think about what you just said, Drew. You said consummate professional and a fury in the same sentence. Come on, that's like an oxymoron.
Oh, you're right though, because
cut that one up.
I honestly feel, my honest opinion, the most consummate fury is Savannah Marshall. No, I'm just playing. The most consummate professional in the Fury family has to be Huey, because Huey doesn't say a lot. He doesn't talk much. His only drawback is that he has some kind of a condition, so sometimes it flares up and he has to pull out of fights. But when it comes to Tommy and Luke, fuck Tyson. When it comes to Tommy and Luke, the apple didn't fall far. Like, y'all bunch of fuck ups, bro. Y'all just stay.
Peter Fury. That's why Peter Fury is his dad. That's why
Peter's a good dude.
He's the person I respect the most.
Peter's a good dude.
You know what, though? I ain't mad at Jake Paul because he's riding that wave, playing the villain and making a shit ton of money doing it. So, I mean, I can't really be mad at him about that, because if I was in his position, I'd do the same thing and milk it.
No, also, what Jake is doing, Jake got more shit, and I said this before, that Jake got more shit than he deserved, because if we just look at this, forget the influencer stuff, just look at it from a boxing perspective. You're talking about a guy who, by all rights, is a late starter in the sport. That's what he is. You don't come from an amateur background. You weren't doing this at 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 12 years old. You weren't. So by boxing standards, you're a late starter. So what late starter do you expect to take on seasoned pros and champions like Maris Breedis? That's not how it goes. The quality of competition is actually akin to the kind of guys that he has been fighting. The only difference is the guys he's been fighting, they have a profile. You know, you're talking about a former MMA champion in Tyrone Woodley, a former MMA champion in Ben Askren. While they're not boxers, right, they are more combat proficient than Jake Paul. If you look at the guys that Wilder was fighting at the Brawl in the Mall and all that shit he was doing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in his first 10 fights, tell me that it's a far cry from the kind of...
Put it this way. Put it this way. Those boxers are fighting Uber drivers, cab drivers, bouncers. He's fighting real people who had fights. They may not be boxing, but they were striking in there. They've been training. I think that. So
yeah. So it's like they give him all this shit, and I'm like, look, what you're really mad at is that for Jake, his career is in a little bit of reverse. That he came into the sport with a following. He came in with marquee value, so he was immediately able to make money that your average unbeaten up-and-comer doesn't make in just a matter of 4 or 5 fights. But there's no reason to resent him for that, because he amassed that following before boxing. There's nothing to be mad about. He came into the sport with that audience.
He also capitalized. He's trying to capitalize on the promotional side now too, which I admire. You know, because I mean that's just more money. And as vocal as he is and saying how boxers need to get paid better and things need to change, I mean he is doing some stuff. So as annoying as he is, he's also maybe putting some more positive credibility on things.
But he makes valid points. And what I had seen from the people that resented him, that resentment was a form of jealousy that I saw. That I'm like, you're acting like he took the food off of a fighter's plate when no, he didn't. He came into the sport with an audience. You need to understand that so that you can develop an audience. He already had those followers as an influencer. That's who's paying to see him fight.
And that's what pisses me off, Jules, about all these fighters bitching about Jake. Like, bro, you can't sell out a fucking nickel ticket at your high school gymnasium, and you mad that motherfucking this dude out here selling tickets. And another thing, Jules, it's funny how Tommy Fury got to deal with this though. The rest of the boxing world's like, okay, Jake, you fighting Rahman. Tommy, you a bitch.
Yep. Yeah. Straight up.
No, I mean, the other thing is this, Drew. if Rahman does him, if he does him in, Tommy Fury is forever the guy that got nervous and started biting his nails when Jake Paul sent him a contract. Don't let Rahman do him. Don't let because if he do him, that's not a win for you, Tommy. That's not a win for you. If Rahman knocks him out, you still the dude, the Fury that was scared to fight him. Because how you gonna have two excuses back to back, my guy?
Julius, put it this way.
Jules, what's worse? What's worse, Jules? Real quick, what's worse? What if Jake makes a good account of himself?
Yeah.
We have Steve Kim, the Korean Castle.
Oh, hell yeah. Korean
Steve, I got to pick your brain. Yeah. Tommy Fury, Jake Paul, how detrimental has this been to the Fury namesake?
Here's the thing. I never make the mistake of taking anything that family says, sort of John, because he might threaten all our lives, seriously.
Yeah, he would too.
I mean, I still remember one of the great press conference moments was the rematch between him and Deontay Wilder. He says, I'm working on a new testosterone therapy to boost my energy levels. Or what was that? Oh, I just jerk off 7 times. And everyone's like, really? And I'm like, wow, can I write that? ESPN was like, no. But it was funny.
I remember that too. He said that I'm going to boost my testosterone by masturbating 7 times a day.
Yeah, here I'm thinking he was going to tell us he takes 4 pills of Nugenics instead of just 2. That guy just says, no, I'm going to jerk it 7 times a day. And it's like,
who says that?
You don't remember when Coogan came up to him? Coogan from IFL TV goes up to the guy, he starts talking about Anthony Joshua. He hadn't even fought Wilder yet. He's like, I don't got nothing against Anthony Joshua, but he has a big cock. What the fuck is wrong with you, fam?
The funny thing is, like Steve, I told Julius, like, you want a Fury to be a consummate professional, and that's the farthest thing from a Fury.
And Steve, I gotta ask. He's fighting Rahman. Do you interpret Rahman versus Paul as being a riskier endeavor than the Fury fight would have been?
That's interesting because, look, Rahman just lost his last fight. Didn't he lose to Tommy Morrison's son?
Yep, McKenzie.
And now he's going to have to go to a pretty significant weight cut. And look, this is a traveling circus. This is about keeping the hustle going. They have a business. I don't know how profitable it really is. I don't really get into the numbers. But look, they chose him for a reason. He gives the impression of being a real fighter. He has boxed, and he has a name. So it checks a lot of boxes. I mean, let's face it. The one time I saw Tommy Fury fight, I think it was last year in Cleveland, I said, wow. He really is the Fredo Corleone of this fighting man. So,
but he wants respect.
Right.
Can I just add? Do you know Tommy Fury's last opponent? He fought in the UK under some YouTubers thing, and it was so bad. It was so bad. Literally, everybody fell asleep. You couldn't beat that guy, Jake Paul's sparring partner. You couldn't knock him out, and you expecting us to knock out?
That's the point I'm making, Sawab, that he was in there with a guy, I think his name is Anderson or Anthony something. He fought that guy.
Anthony Taylor or something like that.
Anthony Taylor. He fights this guy. The guy hadn't actually boxed in something like 2 or 3 years, and he had a negative record. It was actually upside down, Steve.
Oh, my God.
He couldn't knock that guy out. So when you think about Paul versus Fury is actually even money. But Rahman versus Paul, I mean, should we expect Rahman to do him?
No. Look, that's a good question because I think Rahman at least has a better foundation than, let's say, a Tyron Woodley. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've never actually hated this whole thing. The pre-ring circuses, I just don't pay attention to them. It's never really bothered me. The Mayweather exhibitions don't even really bother me. But I just wonder, are the 15 minutes over with this? I mean, last year or 18 months ago, everyone thought this was the thing. We knew the robust numbers. But even now with these events recently, they're not even releasing these numbers anymore. What does that tell you?
Kim, can I tell you one thing? Can I just add
one at a time, fellas?
Let us also remember this one factor. The sons are never as good as the fathers when it comes to boxing.
Well, never say never. Tim Tszyu, never say never, because I will say Tim Tszyu, Nikita Tszyu, very good. Very good.
The Vargas brothers. The Vargas brothers.
Yeah, they're turning out. There's like 3 of them.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, Emiliano is a real prospect. He's got a lot of ability, Emiliano.
Can I just add to that Jake Paul bit? You know, Jake Paul, even if he loses to Hasim Rahman Jr., he's gonna fight KSI in the UK, and then he's gonna fight him in the US. Those pay-per-view, I guarantee you, they're gonna do 2 million pay-per-view buys, because I know people in the UK follow KSI like he's a god over here. People love him, and now especially he's a partner with Logan Paul.
All right, but KSI aside, it's not necessarily, what are Jake's options if he loses? It's not even that. It's more, what effect, Steve, do you imagine it would have if Rahman does Jake Paul, smokes him? Can Tommy recover from that? Because Tommy's the guy who was offered to fight 2 times, and it didn't happen. Can he recover?
I don't think Tommy can recover from this. I'll be honest with you. This is a bad look. I think this is already an L for him.
Right. I agree.
Like I said, people will not let it down, bro. They're not gonna let it down. People are gonna smoke his ass wherever they see him. You duck Jake Paul, you're a bitch. You duck Jake Paul, you're a bitch. Look, he started to cry when the last time he goes, people are I'm depressed, people coming to me. Imagine what they're gonna do to you now.
And oh my God, he's using the depression card too. Oh, geez.
Oh, I mean, they're all depressed over there. John's depressed, Luke's depressed, Tommy's everybody's depressed, and I'm sick of it because it's this coddle me era to where I feel sad today. Bro, I don't give a shit. I don't care. You know what I mean? Reality is, the average person that is watching this situation unfold, they perhaps don't follow the sport as closely as I or you to even know that, okay, well, the first time it was a chest infection, and this situation is in association with, the Kinahan stuff. The average person doesn't know all that and doesn't want to know all that. It's just going to look like, Jake offered you to fight 2 times, my guy. What happened? And when you start explaining, it's just going to sound like, yeah, I guess. And it's bad optics.
3 times, Jules. 3 times, not twice. Jake Paul offered him 500K. He goes, after my August 6th, I'm going to come to the UK, but I'm going to pay you 500K. You're going to take it? I won't even get a bet for 500K. Like you fucking make 500K each fight.
Exactly. When you saw that, Steve, that, Jake told him he would give him $500,000, because Tommy wants to fight in the UK. So Jake told him that he'd give him the fight in the UK for $500,000. We know that Tommy, Frank can't be giving this guy $1 million for those guys he's fighting. What is your interpretation of Tommy saying, I don't get out of bed for that kind of money?
Well, hey, Jules, Easton's asking for the link.
All right, hold on, bro. Go ahead, Steve.
That's about as far-fetched as was when Tyson said he needs $500 million to fight, I believe, Usyk. I don't take anything that family says seriously, and they're good at this. But I think there's already too much attention being afforded that Fury. He can't fight. He's not really good.
Yeah.
I almost think that if you as a professional boxer are chosen by Jake Paul, it literally means you have no future in the sport. It's like, hey, Tag, you're it. Tag, you're it. You got cooties.
Hey.
Yo, that's the best. I swear to God. You see, that's why Steve does what I couldn't have put that, but if Jake is looking at you, that says something. I wish I'd have thought of that. That like, if Jake is picking you for a fight, that's almost an insult.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And that goes for Hasim Rahman Jr. as well. They were sparring together. He saw something. Jake Paul would never. I'm telling you this now, and maybe in the beginning, in the stages now, he would never pick a real threat. Never. he has seen something in Hasim Rahman Jr. I guarantee you, he's seen something. He goes, yeah, I can knock you out.
Yeah, probably his last fight.
No, under spars. They've been sparring from ages now. So.
And I want to say that Steve just had a real Mark Twain moment, because I couldn't have put that better and more concisely. If Jake Paul is even considering fighting you, you must not be good at this, because he wouldn't be looking at you if you were. All right, so enough of the Jake Paul stuff and Tommy Fury, because we'll see what happens.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
Bam Rodriguez is being said to have been added to Canelo versus Golovkin 3 as the co-main event. Just guessing, who do you think he fights in the co-main event?
Well, they're going to try to fight at Flyweight. Robert actually told me that, but asked Robert Garcia, that is, to keep it a secret on the Sunday as he was driving to the airport to get back to Anthony Joshua, because it was not finalized. I saw some of the stuff on Twitter today. Look, the plan is, because they still have to do that fight between McWilliams Arroyo and Julio Cesar Martinez, although now Eddie Hearn is saying that Martinez might fight Edwards. So they got to work that out. But the plan is, look, there's no doubt about it. Robert and Bam want to win a title at 12, because they felt as though time ran out on them at winning one at 108. They still have visions of being a 4 or 5-time world champion. So they want to go back. And also, this is kind of a family dynamic here. They want to give Joshua Franco, the older brother, who's been very, very patient, and what's happening to him, I think, is bordering on unfair. Golden Boy needs to step up and, God damn it, represent your fighter like a real promoter and put a fire under the ass of somebody so this young man can fight here for his rightful title shot. But Bam told me, he goes, look, I want to move down to 12 so my brother can do some work at 115. They have a great relationship. The father's done a great job of raising two really solid young individuals. So for the time being, again, this is going to be like the Klitschko's. They're not going to fight each other. They're going to try to divvy up some of the work. Now, as for who they're going to fight, my guess is, if it's not an immediate title shot, and it probably won't be, I believe they're probably going to try to fight someone within the top 15 of the WBC, so they can get into the rankings to expedite a title shot by the end of the year. Because if it was up to Robert Garcia, not only would they fight September 17th, if he comes out unscathed, they would also fight one more time before the end of 2022.
I feel like Artem Dalakian is largely being overlooked at 112. He's the WBA champ. Most of the talk you hear about the flyweights is either Sonny, Julio, and sometimes Junto, who Junto I think is great, by the way, and he's really, you got to watch out for Junto because he's a bad dude. And I feel like maybe they go for Dalakian, because what the hell has Artem been doing anyway,
One news here, a note. I'm very good friends with Rudy Hernandez, who's trained Junto Nakatani since he was about 14 years old. And I've seen Junto a few times out here train in LA. I might see him next week or two. He's going to move up, it looks like. I believe his days at flyweight are over. So keep that in mind. I haven't spoken to Rudy. He's actually in England now. He got the late assignment to work with Derek Chisora. I was supposed to have dinner with Rudy a couple nights ago at Field Trainees, and he had to go make money. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to find out what's going to happen to Junto probably in about 3-4 days. But keep this in mind. I believe the plan, the last time I heard, was for him to vacate his 112-pound title.
Hey, Steve, is he having trouble making the weight or something?
Yeah. I mean, look, he's kind of growing out of the weight. He's a big guy for a flyweight, and you see the way he's built. And, Rudy keeps telling me, Steve, I don't know if he's in your way, but he could be very, very good. And he's the type of fighter that from 112 to 118, he's a difficult night out at the office for anybody.
Well, I get the sense that I get the sense that what Junto might want to do is move up and take on the winner of Kazuto Ioka versus Dani Nietes 2. That's supposed to be happening very soon. And Kazuto is a great champion. I think he's a great champion. I don't think he gets enough press in the American media, but he's a four-weight champion. He's had some great fights. And I feel like that's the route that Junto might be on. He might be trying to do what Kosei did, move up from flyweight up to super flyweight to take him on. If he does, I think he smokes Kazuto Ioka. I think Kazuto's past it. I think the torch gets passed in the land of the rising sun. That's what I think they're doing. I don't know that that's what they're doing, but it looks like that's what they're doing because Junto's big for flyweight.
No, Junto's big, and it
long,
looks like they're moving that way. I just like that they're putting Bam right back out there and on the biggest fight in the country.
No,
Ioka's a little long in the years too, man.
Mm-hmm. He's been around a long time. Steve, you see this Lawrence Okoli situation with Eddie Hearn, that to where now it seems like they're taking jabs at each other. What's your opinion on Okoli as a fighter, and what's your opinion on the rift, or the perceived rift between them?
Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much animosity. Look, Lawrence Okoli is not exactly the most exciting fighter. I think he's tough to watch.
Yeah.
And last I checked, there's not exactly standing room only audiences for his bouts. Look, fighters, they all feel that they're overpaid.
At the concession stands there are, Steve.
Yeah, in the bathroom lines. That's what we used to call GMO Riggindale fights. Piss break fights. If Riggindale fights, go take a piss, take a shit, buy a beer. Do all three. So
it'll still be there when you get back.
Yeah, I mean, my view is with Okoli, you play to the market value that you have. I would actually like to know specifically, outside of disparaging Eddie Hearn, what's the issue? Because Eddie's going to be fine. Eddie, the dapper, debonair Hearn, he'll just move on.
Mm-hmm. Daddy and Hearn, I call it.
Right. He is just going to move on. I have never actually, and look, I respect those guys. He's a world champion. He's a great Cinderella story. A perseverance. He's working at McDonald's, worked his way up. It's great. But we have to be honest about this. There's never been a time when I've seen a bout sheet or read about a Lawrence Okoli fight and said, okay, I'm staying home here. I'm not missing this.
Steve, I think the problem with Okoli is he's taking the Louis Anderson approach, and he's a manager and thinks that's where the big bucks start rolling in.
Yeah, but he's been promoted to Fries.
It's not even
he's still on Fries.
Right. Well, okay, is he up to flipping over the patties? I mean, Simi Nakeem had to clean the windows and save the shop from getting robbed by Samuel Jackson.
He just graduated from lettuce and fries.
Right. Lawrence.
The funny thing is,
that's the worst division in a lot of ways. He's a cruiserweight also.
And let me say this. The main thing I see, and this is just devoid of whatever it is we don't know that may have happened behind the scenes, though I wonder what could have happened behind the scenes. What, you don't feel that you're being promoted? Listen, there's certain harsh realities, and one of them is, what's the point that Steve made? Bro, you're not that fun to watch. The cruiserweight division is really a puncher's division for the most part, and you're a holder. Like, you hold a lot of these guys, and then you get off a right hand. Most of the time, a lot of his fights, they're not very easy to enjoy. They're not easy to watch. Jayo Pataya and his fight with Mayris Briedis, that was a lot of fun. Let
me give an example,
but Jules,
guys.
is he worse than Frankie Sanchez?
Oh, no. I mean, there's not a lot of guys worse than Frankie Sanchez. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I'll tell you a guy that's worse than Frankie Sanchez. He's fighting tomorrow. Ray Vargas, the boringest Mexican champion since Miguel Vasquez. Oh, I mean, those guys are death. There's an old saying about guys that boring, and Ray Boom Boom Mancini loves it when I say this. That fighter is so boring, they let people in for free, and you charge them to leave.
Shout out to Boom Boom.
I love Boom Boom. Now there was a fighter, Youngstown's finest.
I mean, yeah, it's a thing to where I can see egos coming into it, because it seems like it's a recurring theme with some of Matchroom's fighters or former Matchroom fighters. They felt or they feel like they're not being promoted. Lawrence might be one of them, and this is just me speculating that I don't know. Maybe he feels he wasn't pushed hard enough, but I'm like, listen, you're hard to push, and it's how you fight really, because those Brits will gravitate towards an action fight any old day of the week. But Lawrence, you've been a champion a little while, and we all know how you fight. It's gonna be a clinch fest up until somebody lands something. And in the last fight with the Polish guy, nobody even got knocked out. So it's like, well, you guys were just really holding a lot.
And half of the people that were in the arena were Polish, because Polish they support their own. And
And
I'm not gonna, yeah. What,
the thing with
you know,
Okoli,
Hold on, one at a time. Hold on, wait, one at a time. Go ahead, Sawab. Finish your point, and then go. Drew, you go.
my point. Or I wanted to add. You know the disrespect to Eddie Hearn. I'm not being a ring kisser. I'm not telling you to kiss his ring and kiss him goodbye. But bro, be professional. He's a global promoter. He's the number one. The Sky Sports, okay, they're looking at you. They want to pay you money because they have no one else. You think if they find someone better, they're gonna kick you to the side as well.
That's a fair
Bro,
point.
I'm saying you should go. If you want to tell Eddie Hearn, okay, they pay me this much, I'm gonna go for a couple fights over there. Let me fight over there until whatever. Sort it out nicely. You know what I mean? You don't have to do all this bullshit online, cussing out Eddie Hearn for after whatever he has done for you, and he's trying to leave 258 management as well.
Drew,
So that's a problem with AJ now.
Drew, do you feel that Eddie Hearn is getting too much slack, and it's unjust?
Oh, you know how I feel about Eduardo. That's my man right there. I criticize him when he needs it, but Okoli has to admit he's like a stand-up MMA fighter. He just lays in praise standing.
Steve,
it'd be different if he was fighting in the clinch dirty, Jules, like putting in work, but he don't even do that.
Well, Steve, do you feel that Eddie's getting too much shit, not just from the boxing fans, but from the boxers?
Eddie's an easy target, and I give him credit. He handles it as well as anybody. He kind of relishes it. And here's the thing: I'm looking at Okoli's record. He's 18-0. He got moved well, but and this happens at every company. Every company hopes to have about 3 or 4 pillars, like franchises, guys that every time they fight, they make money. They're the face of the company, and it means something to be under with that association, right? Then you have a rest of the rosters just kind of filled out of belt holders, guys who are good on TV, young prospects, and other guys that are eventually going to get cut because they don't really make it. Okoli's kind of in that middle space where he's somewhat well known. He's a world champion, but he's not that exciting. That's a fact. He could not honestly say that on the open market in his next fight, whoever he fights, let's say you did a blind purse bid and everybody in the world could bid on his fights. I'm not so sure anyone in their right mind, short of America Presents coming back or Rock Nation, would come out and say, yes, we're going to bid $1 million for your fight.
Well, that's the uniqueness of his situation, Steve, that he's, and he's the beneficiary, I think the benefactor of a very competitive UK market to where Sky, they're attempting to compete with DAZN. And I think they can do a good job because they're a big platform over there. And they're willing to pay him. They're willing to pay him great money, but it's not because of how great he is. It's just they need bodies. They need champions.
Yeah.
And he's looking
I'm
at.
just going to tell you this right now. If you look, every company has that fighter that happens to be a world champion.
Yes.
But they have him under contract with the mandated minimum where they financially have to pay him in almost, I don't want to say overpay him, but something far beyond the realistic market value of what that fighter brings to the table in terms of ticket sales, moving the needle. Right now, if I'm Eddie Hearn and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm paying this guy pretty good amount of money, but I get to replace him and he's going to leave willingly. And now I get to save that money and bump up a few guys or sign another prospect or two. Eddie Hearn doesn't seem all that crestfallen that Lawrence Okoli is going to leave him. But you know what I don't understand? And look, Eddie's a busy guy. His work ethic is incredible. For this guy to go to a club show in York Hall, and then the next day go to a New York press conference, and then go to another fight in the United States, and then come back to the UK. It's amazing, okay? The problem is, and a lot of fighters feel as though they should all be treated as the favorite son or child.
Yes.
And some of them start feeling like Jan Brady. It's all about Marsha. Well, hello.
That's the insecurity.
Wait a minute. You saying he's Marsha?
Yeah, I mean, so the other thing is, I was thinking about this, and I don't like when Matchroom did this, but they literally had Dimitri Bivol as deep on the undercard when he fought Craig Richards.
They did.
They even had I remember when when it was MJ Akhmadali fought Danny Roman in a unification bout or fight with unified titles on the line, those guys fought before YouTubers in Miami.
Yes.
But you know what those fighters did? They just fought. There comes a point, just do your damn job.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paid to be in shape. You're paid to fight. Not everybody is going to be invited to the Silk Pajama Party Club with Eddie and Canelo. That's just the way it goes.
Man, stop waiting for the lottery and do what you're supposed to do. Hey, Jules, by the way, JD Boxing had a question for Steve in the super chat. I don't know.
Let me. Yeah, I was just going to get to the super chats. Willie Lynch says this doesn't even compare to some of the other events that I've seen in boxing history because I think this is a new low for a fighter. A YouTuber scared you? What's worse? I can't think of anything. And being honest with you, Will, I can't either. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to get Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul over the line. There just isn't. JD asks, can you ask Steve Kim if Ricardo Rafael Sandoval is a legit threat to the 112-pound champions in his opinion? I am surprised at how overlooked he is.
I wouldn't say against the best version of Junto Nakatani. Sonny Edwards is a very good boxer. I think his best bet would be Delakian, who I haven't kept up with this career that much. I haven't seen him since he beat Brian Valori at the Forum.
Yeah.
So I would be and look, and if Bam Rodriguez is a flyweight, I certainly don't think he beats him.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, is the plan for Bam to fight at 112 for just to pick up a belt or campaign there for a little bit?
Pick up a belt and make a defense title or two and give time for his older brother Joshua to get some business done at 115. I believe that's the plan.
How long though?
That depends. I mean, look, I feel bad for Joshua Franco. And literally, think about this, guys. If it was not for the top-ranked bubble, Joshua Franco has not been given a fight by his own promoter in at least 2-3 years. And now he's kind of stuck in that vortex because he thinks he's got that shot with Estrada, but then the BC says, no, it's Estrada. You got to fight Chocolatito. All right, that's fine, but at a certain point, somebody has to stand up for Joshua Franco and say, God damn it, this kid's got to fight.
I mean, it's true. The person
I feel bad for him.
Steve, I remember you tweeted that Golden Boy had won the purse bid, but it was a really low winning bid. It was about like $100,000.
It was never going to happen at that number. It was never going to happen at that number.
So how do you evaluate that situation now? Is Juan just going to drop the BA and give it to Joshua Franco, or do they fight?
Here's my guess. I believe the zone is going to throw in a significant amount of money or invest in the Chocolatito Estrada fight. That's been a successful franchise for them. And they realize that fight may not move the needle with the general public, but with the hardcore fan, that's something we care about. Boxing nerds like us, we make that a big weekend. We care about that, okay? So with that said, the BA will then have to go by its word and tell Estrada you're going to vacate the belt. You did not live by the mandate. This is what I hate. If you're going to call something mandated, it can't be a request. Think about this, guys. We are mandated to pay taxes. It's not a request. I don't get to tell the IRS, I'm not going to pay. No. You are mandated. So that this is what I hate, where Ryan Garcia is very dishonest about this when he said, well, Haney, I was never supposed to. He fought 2 eliminators, or at least one, where he became the mandated challenger for Devin Haney and then acted like it never happened. And that's where the BC, this is where the sanctioning body should literally tell these guys, if you win our #1 spot and become the mandated challenger and you don't enforce that challenge, you get dropped out of the ratings.
Exactly.
But you know how it is, Steve, that the BC still wants to be able to collect sanctioning fees from whoever Ryan fights, so they'll allow him to hold that position just for the benefit of the sanctioning fees they get from his fights. By all rights, I'm in agreement. They should drop him. If you don't want to be #1 and you don't want to challenge for the belt, then you don't need to be #1. But
Jules, I have told this to at least one of the sanctioning body heads. You guys have to understand that belt and those rankings are your property. But too many times we have fighters and their promoters who are valuable properties who are given deferential treatment because you're right. Those alphabet organizations who I believe have a place in this business, they start to want to be co-promoters because they do understand certain fighters make more money from them. But they have to understand this. That number one ranking, which is like Boardwalk or Park Place on a monopoly board, that's valuable property. Yep. You know what? That's your property. Too many guys fight for the number one position, not to fight a champion, but to fight for a vacated title if a guy like Demetrius Andre is the belt holder.
Exactly.
It's utter bullshit.
It's ridiculous, man. And they let Ryan Garcia have a Mariah Carey moment and that he's depressed. He wants to go to the beach, get away. Like, man, get your butt in the ring and fight, damn it.
Well, like you said, Steve, Oscar needs to stop hanging out with Mark Anthony and A-Rod unless it's and just showing up to Ryan fights. He needs to take control and it's just criminal what they're doing to him.
I mean, think about what happened with the WBO position this year. Demetrius Andre makes the decision to move up to 68 against Zach Parker. Tough fight. So then you had the number one guy, which was Jaime Munguia, who had well over a year. And the WBO never pressed the issue. And I would ask him, what are you guys doing? This guy's almost 40 fights in. He's 24, 25 years old.
Yep.
Either tell him to piss or get off the pot. Then look at what happened here. So then the title becomes vacant. So then in theory, it was going to be Munguia against Kazakh style. Janabek. And I'm like, oh, good fight.
That would be great.
You know what the weird part about that situation is, Steve? The title's not registered as vacant. We don't know where we are with the Zach Parker fight, if we're even anywhere. Like, we literally don't. What is Demetrius going to do? Are you going back to 60 or are you going to go up to 68?
Where's Isan? Isan, answer. You are called to order now. And here's the thing. As soon as they understood we had to fight Janabek, they were like those squatters. They vacated that premises real fast, right?
Steve, they're all waiting for Canelo. That's all it is. They want the payday.
They want that lottery ticket, man.
But you know what they should do then? Go up to 68. He's not coming back to 60.
Well, I have a theory, Steve. I have a theory. If Golovkin loses to Canelo, and I think that a lot of people are picking him to lose, it all depends on the fashion. If he loses a points decision to where he finishes the fight on his feet, he returns to middleweight as a unified champion, fights Jaime Munguia, and Jaime retires him.
Yeah, you're right. It's just amazing with Munguia. Then you think we're on the verge of a deal with Jermall Charlo, and then De La Hoya says, no, the zone has to, and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Now, Steve, if the zone's going to put up the money for Estrada and Choco, aren't they going to want Bam to fight the winner?
Yeah, I think Eddie Hearn's already said that. But if he's going to insist on staying at 12, the fighter can just say, no, I'm sticking here at 12. I'm just telling you, the brothers, Bam has basically said, look, my brother, I need to give him his respect. He needs to be given some opportunities here.
And the other thing is that Jake Donovan tweeted yesterday at the height of the story, a lot of people already assumed that Chocolatito versus Bam is it's set to go. And Jake Donovan tweeted late in the day that, hey, wait a minute now. They still talking about going to 112. They're still talking about Choco as a last resort because they're good buddies by way of taking promotions. So we can't even assume that, it's Choco. It's indefinitely Choco. It might not be. There's more money.
See, here's the thing. If you're going to have Bam as the co-feature on September 17th, remember, all of these pay-per-view undercards has a budget. Well, that means the Chocolatito Bam fight is not – the zone is not going to put that as an undercard fight. They're just not. That's going to be its own separate date. That means that the earliest that Bam could fight again is late November, December, and I don't think Chocolatito wants to wait. I believe that Chocolatito's people, and I know his manager real well. I need to give him a call, Carlos Blandon, but he's still not back in the country. He told me minutes after they beat Martinez, like, Steve, we still want Estrada. We believe that's an enforceable contract, and they still have bitter feelings over that second fight, which, quite frankly, I thought Chocolatito got jobbed.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah,
I'm still bitter. I was there.
Steve,
I'm still bitter.
Steve, on your robbery meter, which was the bigger robbery? Chocolatito versus Estrada 2 or Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor?
That's a tough one. I would. That's a Ginger or Marianne comparison because both were kind of sort of blatant. I will say this. I thought Chocolatito landed many more clean punches than Catterall.
Yeah. I want to say this, Steve, and I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to be honest. On my robbery meter, Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor doesn't register. I had Jack winning the fight, but I had him winning the fight by a point, just a point. It wasn't like Chocolatito versus Estrada 2, way bigger robbery, way more egregious. I thought Chocolatito, before the scorecards were read, I honestly felt he's got this fight in the bag. There's no way
8-4.
They could take this
I had
fight
an
from him.
8-4. 116-112 Chocolatito.
And he lost the BA in the process, so that Estrada may end up losing the BA by default to Joshua Franco. It's terrible. And all the Chocolatito can win from Juan is the franchise, which ain't worth a damn, because Bam's got the world. That's the one ideally you want. You want the world, not the franchise. The franchise, that shit don't mean nothing, that franchise shit. That's what Estrada has, and that's how they're quote-unquote mandating the fight, where initially Mauricio Suleiman, upon the inception of franchise status, they said that franchise champions don't have mandatories. 2.5 years later, a franchise champion is being mandated to satisfy a mandatory.
Yeah.
Do you know where I put Tyson Fury? I think I put Mauricio Suleiman and them both on the same level. They both talk the most shit.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, by the way, I love your references because I get them all.
You know, that's our country. You're all as shit.
Hey, that's all right. I'm old's a mindset. I'm just aging, man. But the Ginger and Marianne thing is hilarious.
I wish I was old.
Let me read the super chat. Willie Lynch says, greed is what happened. Fighters are used to making money off the zone, but they are not generating the interest to be worth the money they are asking for. That's in reference to Lawrence Okoli, I assume. He also adds, Eson has answered the call. Let me shoot Eson a link.
He's been waiting.
I'll shoot him a link. It's just getting a little crowded up here. Steve, you got Kubrat Pulev versus Derek Chisora tomorrow. Personally, I think Pulev, he's got Chisora's number. It just looks that way to me. What's your level of interest in a fight like that?
Honestly, to me, I'm going to be honest. My main event on that card is Madrimov Soro 2 because I'm big on Madrimov. Pulev against Chisora is the walkout bout. I have a great deal of respect for the warhorse that is Derek Chisora, but he's very, very worn out. He's very, very faded. I get that Pulev has more in the tank. He's a fresher fighter. I think he goes the distance and pounds out a decision. I don't see it being really exciting, though, to be honest with you, outside of maybe a few pockets of action.
What about Mark Mixayo's chances against Ray Vargas? Do you think that he gives Ray his first professional loss, or are you just hoping that he gives Ray his first professional loss?
Yeah, I think the whole world, and we were DMing about this a week or two ago, Julius. I want Mixayo to win just for the fact I think Mixayo against Leo Santa Cruz is a much more interesting fight, but that's redundant because anything is more interesting than a Ray Vargas fight. Ray Vargas, that's that old line from Carl Froch. He could put a glass eye to sleep. It's just an ugly, unwatchable affair with him.
Quiet as his kips. Steve would rather watch women's soccer than a Ray Vargas fight.
Now that Megan Rapinoe's off the team, that might be true. But look, here's the issue. That's a card tomorrow. I might be going out. I might just have that. That's one of those fights that you DVR. You can cut through all the commercials and the 30-minute interludes. Honestly, that's the truth. That's one of those cards. I'm going to watch because I have a responsibility. I have to still kind of write about it. We're going to be back on the 3 knockdown rule, and I have to talk about it. But
Steve, call me crazy, Steve, but I get the impression that you're not that high on Ray Vargas. Am I right?
I'm not. No, I think I'd rather watch Megan Rapinoe kick a soccer ball against the wall than watch him. I guess it's bad.
Last time I watched Ray fight was like 4 years ago.
Steve, do you know who
Could
they're
you imagine a
replacing
fight between him
Keyshawn
and
on the
Miguel
card with?
Vasquez? How bad that would be.
Oh my
Oh
God!
ouch.
Well,
Now, I
one
do
at a
like
time,
Frank Martin. Frank Martin's good.
Frank
That's a
Martin is
talented guy.
exciting. Frank Martin is exciting. He's exciting.
Good fight.
What I'm going to ask you, Steve, is there's a situation with the WBA involving Leo, who you just mentioned, and Lee Wood. When I asked Gilberto Mendoza by way of Twitter, I asked him, what happened to Lee Wood versus Leo Santa Cruz, because you guys said that you were going to order that fight. And he said that they did order that fight. But the feeling is just like you said, that if Mark Magsayo wins, he goes into a Santa Cruz unification match. So where does that leave Lee Wood?
If I'm Lee Wood, I think the bigger money fight for him is a rematch with Conlon. It's the fight of the year. It's even bigger than it is now. It was a lot of fireworks.
Yeah.
And they drew a significant crowd because a fight like that in the UK does big business. I'm actually surprised. I know that Conlon fights August 6th, correct? He has a tune-up fight against Miguel Mariaga. If he comes out of that clean, if I'm Lee Wood, I go, hey, Mick, let's do that again. It's the bigger fight financially, is it not?
I mean, honestly, it is. And it's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream. Eddie's tried it with so many PBC fighters, Adam Kovnowski, Luis Ortiz, Javante Davis, Jermall Charlo, making them offers to come over to, the DAZN side of things. The reality is Leo is not going over there, I mean, he's not. So you really should be working on another fight. If not the Conlon fight, like you just said, Steve, Josh Warrington, do that fight. If you can't get him the full WBA title, get him the full IBF, get him a shot at that. Because one thing I know, Leo's not going over there. He's not.
The thing with Leo Santa Cruz, if I'm not mistaken, he literally has not fought since he was knocked into outer space by Gervonta Davis.
No. Steve, he fought. He fought,
he did
but
fight.
not as a featherweight. But this is where it's weird. This man has not fought as a featherweight in like 3.5 years. But he still has a belt there, though.
That's weird.
Hold on, I got to look at his record. He used to be one of my favorite fighters. He had actually an early run where it was really exciting to watch him. He was active. He was busy. And then he named this kid after Al Heyman. It was over. Yeah, he fought Keenan Carbajal on the Keith Thurman card. You're right. And that was the same night on February 5th that Bam Rodriguez fought Carlos Cuadras. No wonder why I forgot about it.
Exactly. I swear to God, you took the words out of my mouth. Because I'm like, when I
watched on that app, nobody watches, you mean?
Yeah, when I watched
on the app, nobody watches, right?
When I watched that fight after Cuadras versus Bam, I went to sleep, bro. I didn't stay up for the Thurman fight. I didn't. And I'm definitely not going to stay up for no goddamn Leo Santa Cruz. Now, I want to ask you, Steve, about Canelo versus Golovkin 3. A lot of people got mixed feelings about this fight. Some people are excited more than others. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your level of excitement for that trilogy?
Oh, for that one? It's only a 9.5 because at the same time, Miami's going to be playing Texas A&M, so it's a slight buzzkill. But look, do I think it was more optimal if that rematch would have happened in 2019? Yes. But I think there is some intrigue. I have said this even last year as Golovkin took the whole year off. He still knows how to hit Canelo. And unlike other guys not named Dimitri Bivol, every guy that faced Canelo from Rocky Fielding on all the way up until Bivol, I thought they were slightly intimidated and awed by Canelo. These guys from Russia that are good enough, they're not. They're really not.
Right.
Golovkin at 168 is going to be interesting. And Canelo, keep this in mind. He's had a lot of fights under his belt. There could start to be some erosion. And I still don't like the fact he plays golf so damn much. Get off your feet. You don't need to be playing 90 holes a week during training camp.
But Steve, he just started. It's not like he's been playing it that long,
I'm with you though. Look, can you play it on the weekends? But I was told by somebody that's very familiar with that gym that he goes golfing multiple times a week.
Really?
I'm just not a fan of athletes being on their feet after they train. Rest and recovery is so
Unless you're
important.
MJ.
Right.
Steve, now as far as the aesthetic of the match, what do you imagine that fight's gonna look like? Is it gonna be round 25 or can we expect that Canelo will close the show?
I hope it's 25 because it'll be a great fight. If you actually look, no matter who you thought won the first two fights, and I know there's a lot of opinions out there, the first 20 or so rounds was a really high-level, intense chess match. The last three was a damn good fight where guys started to really hit each other clean. It just wasn't the occasional jab. And if Canelo keeps his promise to knock this son of a bitch out and embarrass him and end his career with a knockout, and he's going to go right to him. If I'm Gennady Golovkin, I roll out the welcome mat because as an older fighter, I don't want to go around chasing the younger guy. I love the possibility that Canelo may just stand up there and say, you know what? I'm going to be on my front foot. I'm not going to be doing the Philly shell. I'm going to lead the attack. I would love to see that.
It's giving Pacquiao Marquez 4 vibes. I'm just saying.
I think that you just have an affinity for Golovkin, Isan. I'm gonna be honest.
I got an affinity for money, motherfucker. I'm taking your money again.
You only betted on him because you fucking like him. You only betted on him.
No, I think he has a legit shot. I like him, but he has a legit shot in my eyes too.
I just don't see. I bet because I just don't see him getting knocked out. Till I see it, I won't believe it.
Listen, I got to go on camera for this. Let me tell you young guys something, all right? There used to be this movie called Cocoon way back in the day. Old guy found, all these old people, they found the Fountain of Youth.
I remember Cocoon.
I didn't see Cocoon in the Murata fight. I didn't see Golovkin step into the Cocoon in the Murata fight. I'm telling you.
Triple G says he has a way. He knows the way to beat Canelo, though. So
I believe it. If you think he won, then yeah, he does.
If we're doing movie references, this is Diggstown, and Triple G's coming in like a prime Honey Roy Palmer. All right.
Yeah. You keep thinking that hot shit. You keep thinking that hot shit.
Julius, I can't believe you didn't take that bet with Drew, man. I thought you had more faith in your guy.
Look, this is the thing. The other end of the spectrum and the opposing argument is that because Canelo Alvarez wants to make a statement, because he's frustrated that he lost to Dimitri Bivol, there's a chance that you take this guy too lightly. To Steve's point, you're golfing too fucking much, bro. This is Golovkin after all. This ain't Jermall Charlo. You know what I mean? Like, this is not Jermall we're talking about or any of those guys. This is Gennady. If Gennady is nothing else, he is a consummate professional. You know he's taking this fight seriously. If you're not, yeah, there's a chance. I don't like the chance that you will lose or get knocked out. But yeah, there's a chance. And that's why I don't take that bet, because it's like Canelo, you go in there like Teofimo did with George. You go in there throwing stupid punches and being stupid and forgetting who this guy is. You could put yourself in harm's way.
Listen, Canelo is prideful. And he's arrogant. He's a bit of arrogance to him, yeah.
Will you guys stop with the Canelo is arrogant shit?
I'm just saying. No, but he thinks he's gonna go in there and run this Kazakh motherfucker over. He might walk into some shit. He might walk into some shit. It's true. It's true.
Let me ask you a question, Isan. How much shit did he have to hit Murata with? How much shit did he have to hit Murata with before he put a dent in that guy?
But Murata has normally a huge skull and can take a punch. So what do you mean?
You know them Japanese guys is tough motherfuckers.
Yeah, when has Murata ever been chinny? That's my question.
Though, I know hindsight's 2020.
Let me ask you. Whoever hurt Murata earlier easily?
Well, I'm not hurt him, but I mean, Rob Brandt was getting in his ass, man. He was getting his ass.
Okay, but but did he stop him or did he hurt him? Did he stop him or hurt him?
Real quick, I know hindsight's 2020, but this fight benefited from Canelo losing to Bivol. This fight was made big. This fight's bigger now because Canelo lost to Bivol. It added a different spotlight to this fight and more narrative.
Well, with the loss to Bivol, it makes me wonder if Canelo's confidence is hit just a little bit, you know?
All right, now I got a proliferation of super chats I want to read. Willie Lynch says, Eson has answered the call. Century Gothic says, Jules and Steve Kim, best podcast around. Shout out to you, Century Gothic, and shout out to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Ash says,
Oh, thank you.
You know what I mean? And Ash says, when will the Diaz camp get their flowers? MJ, Madrimov, Bivol. I live in the UK. Okoli can't sell one ticket or draw TV viewers. Yeah, I think Okoli, I think he honestly has an inflated ego thing going on. Willie Lynch says, the Julius versus Eson saga of 2022 has been super.
Hey, I'm 1-0. I'm 1-0. I'm undefeated.
How would you want to know, fam? You just
I took your bread from Bibble. I took your bread from Bibble. I took your bread from Bibble.
No, but that last super chat though, Jules.
Wait, Julius. Doug is in the background. You want to talk some shit.
Yeah, but we got like 9 guys up here. Okay. Let me read the super chat.
I wanted to say real quick. Go ahead.
What's up, guys?
Okay, one at a time, please. Gets hands. Nah, Triple G is no country for old men. Don't forget Eson. Don't forget Eson. I had to twist your arm to fucking bet on Golovkin, bro. I had to.
No. You wanted me to up the money. You wanted me to up the money. That's it.
Yes,
you didn't give me
you believe in him, right? You believe in him.
All right, and you don't believe in Canelo to bet Drew more money, huh? So
no.
Same thing,
That's a different bet. That's a different bet.
I actually bet you though. But I actually bet you though. You didn't bet on your man. You didn't bet on your man. You did not bet on your guy.
Fellas.
So where am I wrong? Let me know.
We got to stop talking about bets because that'll bring Mr. PBC in. But I wanted to ask Steve. I wanted to ask.
I want that back end money. I want that back end money.
I got one question for
Steven Jules.
1 second.
Where you guys have Joel Diaz right now on your trainer on a training pound for pound list?
I mean, Joel Diaz. I'll say this: Joel Diaz is one of those guys that reminds me of Mark Ramsey. That he does a lot of great work that kind of goes unnoticed. Joel Diaz has been a good trainer. Back when he was training Tim Bradley, he was a good trainer. He's still a good trainer. He's just not a star trainer. He doesn't have the profile of Derek James, for example. But he's a damn good trainer, and he's always been a damn good trainer. I think the same thing about Manny Robles, another damn good trainer that perhaps doesn't get talked about enough.
Buddy McGirt.
Yeah. Before 1 second,
Julius.
I need to.
Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead.
I got a question
for
for Steve.
Go ahead.
I got a question for you, Steve.
Yeah.
It's off topic. It was back to Tank. I really want to ask, but then Julia, I didn't want to interrupt Julius. Right. You know, people say, or cucks say, that Tank Davis is a 3 times world champion. Yeah.
That's bullshit.
To me, To me, he's a transgender champion. So a fake one.
Well, Steve, I have a question. I have a question. So he's not a 3 division champion, but he identifies
Exactly.
He identifies as a
transgender.
That's his pronoun.
Yeah, I mean, look,
that's classic.
In my view, Tank is a really solid fighter. But, they've created a market for him. They've created this industry, but he's handled with kid gloves. And, his supporter, I've always felt this way. His supporters underrate him and his detractors probably underrate. No, let me get this straight. Let me start that. His supporters completely overrate him, and I think his detractors probably underrate him a little bit. He's a skilled kid, but I will say this. As good as I think he is, because he's a strong puncher, let me ask you this. Could any elite fighter have had that much trouble with the Rolly Romero and been praised? No. Could you imagine if Golovkin would have got hit one time by Romero?
Steve, they put him in the pound for pound list because of this. They put him in the pound for pound list.
Yeah, you know what's funny? Me and Doug were at dinner with a couple of other people. And Sanch, you got to get an invite next time we're at training. So we have this dinner once a month where we just get some boxing people. We chop it up. Trainers go, managers go. And we were actually laughing about that during the time when Golovkin was really at his best and people were ripping him, Doug made a great point, and he actually tweeted this years ago. There was this fight with Rigondeaux where he took on this rather nondescript Japanese fighter who wasn't exactly Inoue, who knocked him down twice.
Yep. Oh, yep.
And Doug actually said, could you imagine if a Golovkin or Lomachenko would have been knocked down just one time, what these people would have said about him? Yet Rigondeaux, people still say, well, that's the best pound-for-pound boxer in the world. There truly is a double standard, no standard that exists. There's no doubt about it. You take a look at any of your top 10 fighters in the world, especially if they are foreign fighters. If they drop even one round to a guy like Romero, they would be excommunicated from these lists. That's the fact.
I mean, if you think about one at a time, hold on, one at a time. If you think about Gervonta, and this is why I'm so hard on him, because of the double standard. Gervonta Davis's lightweight resume is Yuriorkis Gamboa, Isaac Cruz, nondescript Isaac Cruz, whose best win is a loss, really. That's what all the talk is about, because all he's done since the Davis fight is fight the same guy that Davis fought, Gamboa, right? And Rolly Romero, who he struggled with. If I remove the name Davis and I swap it out for some other fighter's name, that's what gives you the perspective of him being over. That you're not doing anything, fam. Like, you're not doing anything. You're not beating anyone. These guys, like you look this way because of who you're fighting. And I maintain that Shakur Stevenson would play with Gervonta Davis. He would play with him. He'd do whatever he wants with that guy because Davis is not that good. And I stand by that.
That's why I've been adamant about even Keyshawn Davis hurt that boy.
The problem is they're specifically keeping Tank away from elite opposition because they know that he's going to have a problem once he steps up there.
Listen, Rolly shows a little semblance of a jab, Steve. Some semblance of a jab in the early goings of the fight. And that orthodox lazy jab, because it was a lazy jab. He wasn't bringing that hand back fast enough for me. Any other fighter would have been able to get him out of there. We know that Jackson Marinez unofficially beat Rolly Romero 2-3 fights ago, all right? Yeah. And that's the guy that Gervonta Davis, I feel, I don't know how the judges had it, to be honest, but I know that I had Gervonta Davis down. Like, you losing rounds to this guy, fam. Shakur Stevenson don't lose rounds to a Rolly Romero.
Imagine what Shakur Stevenson would do to Tank in a fight.
Well, I do.
Imagine what they'd be saying if Devin Haney got hit by Romero.
Exactly.
Tengo una preguntita.
Go ahead, Leo.
Julius. People on the panel, we have been talking about why. No, it is important that there are 4 boxing organisms. We have the IBF, the WBO, the WBC, and the WBA. Each have one belt that's been recognized by the other sanctioning bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have been talking about that for a long time. We are not being explaining here is why is that important. Because in my opinion, I have the feeling that every sanctioning body has the faculties to do whatever they want, fabricate whatever the belts they want, move the rankings at pleasure. So that system, the unification system, validated by the other sanctioning bodies, is the only thing that gives this sport some sense,
some credibility. A hierarchy. I agree, which is why I'm not against there being 4 sanctioning bodies. What I'm against is the special interests given to broadcasters. I think it was Steve that raised this point. Boxing's problem is not that there are 4 sanctioning bodies. Nope. It's the exclusivity that broadcasters have with promotional outfits. Yeah. That actually creates more problems than the sanctioning bodies. Steve, talk to us about that.
Julius, I said this 15 years ago, and I was thought to be the craziest guy, the village idiot, which I may be, but I will argue this point to the day I die. When people say there needs to be less belts, or maybe just one champion, in theory, I agree. But then I ask them, okay, here's the issue. Does that mean the fighters only fight once or twice a year still? Because imagine a system with only one world champion and you're the 4th best guy in that division. That means if you're Gary Russell's challenger, based on his title run, hey, son, that title shot, yeah, it's going to be like the Olympics. You're going to have to wait 4 years. No, I'd rather have 3 other belts I could choose from and make some money with. Look at Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler was in an era with basically 1 or 2 belts. He was blackballed. And if I'm Marvin Hagler, I would have rather have 4 different pathways to make a title than eventually try to unify. A guy like Boots Ennis, if there was no sanctioning bodies or just one, there is nobody volunteering to fight that monster out of Philadelphia. I know some people think he's overrated now. Some people think that may all be true. But there's nobody out of the goodness of their heart are going to say, for the sanctity of boxing, I'm going to give Boots Ennis a shot. No, someone's going to have to be held up at gunpoint with the mandatory edict to fight him. So until you give me a system or a reality where champions are defending their titles 4 or 5 times a year like the olden days, I don't want 1 belt per champion because these fighters could not make a real living then. That's the reality. All these utopians who don't know a damn thing about the business and they live in this abstract reality have never actually answered that question. And the other thing is, you're right. If you have a real good champion that makes a lot of money with only 1 belt, well, you think they're going to play keep away and allow anyone else to win that belt but except someone in their own company? You live in a fantasy world then.
Right. Exactly. I think that the real problem that boxing and Steve, it was Steve that brought that to my attention when he said it, that the real issue is not the sanctioning bodies, because if everybody's fighting, it doesn't matter. The problem is everybody's not fighting. Well, why is everybody not fighting? Because of the exclusivity contracts, because of the sides of the street. That's what's really preventing fights from happening more than sanctioning bodies, because we see that if a particular outfit has all the belts at a given weight, fights happen, like what we saw at 154 pounds with Jermell Charlo. Those, the fights that needed to happen happened. So the real issue is they need to develop a bartering process where they trade fighters at a given weight, where you say, well, look, I got a guy at 122. He needs a fight. Can I borrow your guy if I let you borrow my guy at, say, 130 or 135? I feel that's the solution. We need a bartering process where they swap fighters at weights where your guy needs that fight. The biggest fight for Stephen Fulton is MJ Akhmadaliev at this moment, because he knew he's not moving up this year. If he moves up, it won't be till next year. So what does he do for the remainder of this year? Does he not fight? Well, that doesn't help him. That's not going to help his profile. He needs that undisputed fight. That's what needs to happen.
And it ain't going to help him fighting just anybody either. He needs, he's
got to fight Akhmadaliev. That's the only fight for those 2 guys. And the same is true in reverse. I'm not going to put it all on Stephen. I'm not going to put it all on the PBC. The same is true for Eddie. If you're Eddie, you need to make that fight. What the hell else are you going to do for MJ?
Yeah, Julius, in all fairness to MJ Akhmadaliev, and I saw a picture of it. I spoke to his manager, Vadim Kornilov, about 3 days ago. He has a pretty damaged left hand coming off that Rios fight. So I don't know when he's going to fight again. But to your point, Fulton needs to get back out there. You're right in the physical prime at 27. You had a great effort against Roman. Keep building your profile. Insist that you fight another time this year, if not twice.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, one guy that actually would probably fight Boots and he wouldn't be afraid, I say, is Crawford, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. If Crawford is this close to a Spence fight, in theory, I'm not sure about that.
That's what I was about to say. Like, if you're on the precipice of a Spence fight, fighting Boots is not a priority. Moreover, he's not even Terrence's problem. He's actually Spence's problem. This is his IBF mandatory challenger. Right. I believe the only reason we're even hearing about a potential Crawford fight is because Boots is the mandatory challenger. If you're Errol's handlers, what the hell am I going to put him in a Boots fight for to lose to that guy? For that, I might as well make a Crawford fight. At least we could put that on pay-per-view.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. If you want to raise the value of Boots, where he becomes more palatable for these marquee names at 47, but unfortunately, this is never going to happen, Keith Thurman treats Boots like he's AIDS.
Yes.
And just like, all right, forget it. I mean, look, think about this. Keith Thurman fought in February. We are now into middle of summer, right? We're into July. what has there been any talk of him fighting somebody?
Who?
Anybody?
Steve, I heard, I saw an interview, this was months ago. They actually asked Keith if he knew who Jaron Boots Ennis was. And he said no. He said he doesn't know him. And I don't believe him.
Yeah, that's a lie.
I don't believe him.
Keith Thurman is a retired boxer. That's as good as a retired prostitute. So
I mean, Danny Garcia ran to 154 because he don't want Boots.
Look, by all rights, the ideal fight for Jaron Boots Ennis, in all honesty, it really is Keith Thurman. Former champion, only one loss, too many Pacquiao. So in some ways, there's no shame in that, but there is, because that was a passing of the torch fight. You dropped the torch that Manny was passing you. You dropped it.
Keith would get destroyed, and Garcia would get destroyed even worse.
But that's the problem. Nobody really cares. I mean, like, I don't mind Garcia versus Benavidez. It's a nice little fight on paper. But realistically, it should be Danny Garcia versus Jaron Boots Ennis. It should be Keith Thurman versus Jaron Boots Ennis. Because how the hell else are you going to get this guy any marquee value? He has to fight the familiar welterweights. And none of them, to Steve's point, short of a mandate or a gun to somebody's head, it doesn't happen.
I have to tell you guys, the one fight on the schedule that is just something that just makes me shake my head, and certain people are going to try to play it up like it's a great fight because they recognize both names because they've been on television for years. That Danny Garcia-Benavidez fight, that's what I call an environmentalist fight because that's recycling at its best. I'm just like, God, what is the end game there?
The problem is Danny Garcia really don't want to fight nobody.
I mean, like, if you're Danny, you spent all that time trash talking Terrence Crawford when he was down there at 40, so that when he gets to 47, you want to abscond to 54. And you know what Danny's doing. We all know what Danny's doing. Danny's
running away from a live grenade.
What it is, he's waiting for a title to go vacant. He has Charlo would chew him up and spit him out. He'd chew him up and spit him out. He's not up there because he wants Charlo. He's up there because he feels Charlo is on the precipice of leaving the division, and he wants to catch a vacant title. That's all it is. Give me Danny Garcia versus Sebastian Fundora. I'd buy that for $1.
Right. By the way, what's going on with Fundora?
On that note, I just want to say one thing. First of all, thank you, Julius, for having me on. Steve, I appreciate you. Thanks so much. And everyone,
have a great night. Have a great weekend.
Eid Mubarak to everyone that's celebrating tomorrow. Have a good one. Good night.
Have a good weekend.
All right. We got Shelton in here. Shelton, anything you want to ask Steve Kim?
Hey, Steve, how you doing tonight?
How you doing, Shelton? Having a good time in here.
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on, Julius. What's the newest retarded rumor we're gonna hear about this fight now? The last one I heard was somebody wanted $100 million.
What? You know what's interesting about that? I wouldn't go that far, but I was literally, here's the issue I always thought was gonna persist with the Crawford-Spence negotiations. That I know the mind of a fighter. I've talked to enough of them. I've had discussions with managers and promoters. If you go back to Crawford's last fight with the oppressive Top Rank, those colonizers, right, that ruined his career, they actually paid him for a fight against Sean Porter that did not break 150,000 pay-per-views. They paid him $6 million. Because if you remember, Bob Arum put up a $10 million bid for that fight.
Yep.
Right. I know.
So the mindset of a fighter is, unfortunately, for us, is that they never go backwards in terms of the money. I had this sinking feeling that when it came to this fight, both Spence and Crawford, and especially Crawford, given the fact he got 6, he automatically said, oh, if I'm getting 6 for this fight against Spence, I need to get double that, 10 to 12. And now, you know what Crawford has said publicly? He's always thought, and I think rightfully so, I'm the bigger draw. I should be getting at least 60-40. So now you have a point where Crawford's going to say, well, okay, I need about 15. I mean, this guy Crawford's a bad dude. He's the boogeyman of Omaha. So if you do the numbers you're like, wow, does this fight even break 500,000 pay-per-views? Because that's how they project these things, guys. It's all math.
Yeah.
And so
and the thing. Go ahead.
No. And so the thing is like you have to realize when Manny Pacquiao was really rolling from 2009 to about 2013, when every one of his pay-per-views did right around $1 million. Manny Pacquiao was guaranteed under his contract with Bob Arum, Top Rank, $20 million. And generally the opponent got 4 to 5. So that's a $25 million nut. The reason why they felt secure in giving both those fighters guarantees like that is because they knew that pay-per-view was good for 1 million buys.
Exactly.
This is all math. This is not about these evil promoters trying to squeeze fight. I don't actually know or think that a promoter has turned a real profit on a pay-per-view last 3-4 years.
I'll say this, Steve. I understand Crawford's mindset because you tell yourself that if I got 6 with Sean, just off of me, I got 6 with Sean. Errol's supposed to be a bigger name than I am. He draws more than I do. So ideally, I'm supposed to get something north of 6 if he's the guy I'm fighting as opposed to Sean. If I got 6 with Sean and I'm fighting Errol next, I'm expecting more than 6.
Right. And so the other issue is, guys, and I've said this, it probably doesn't make me the most popular person in Omaha. If I'm Bud Crawford, I get off of 50-50. You have to go to 55-45 because here's something I've said before, and I was talking to Coach Malachi, and I hope he does a show on this. What is the price of a victory? Let's say you only get 95% of what you want. You're going to leave all of that on the table with the chance to make history and to parlay that victory into bigger things. What is the price of victory?
Sometimes you're going to sacrifice.
Steve, it sounds like this is like he should take a page out of Holyfield Tyson negotiations.
Yes. One of my favorite stories, guys. I don't know if you heard it, but when they were negotiating that first fight after he nearly died in the ring against Bobby Ches, Jim Thomas, the lawyer for Holyfield, really good guy. He told me this story. They're in Toronto. King had set up an office at a hotel ballroom or a conference room. And so as they met in September or late August of 1996 to negotiate that fight, Don and Evander literally start arguing across from each other, yelling at each other. And Jim Thomas called a timeout and he said, Don, I need to have a moment with my fighter. Takes Evander outside and he says to Evander, I got to ask you one question. He goes, yeah, what's that? He goes, do you think you could actually win? He said Evander got so pissed off at him, he thought he was going to hit him. He said, no, Evander, because I need you to know one thing. The way you're negotiating right now, trying to get every single dollar out of this, we're not going to get the fight. And Evander said, well, he's not being fair. And Jim Thomas said, if you're looking for fairness, we shouldn't be talking to Don King. He thinks you're he said that. And he goes, here's the thing. If you think you can win, you need to lay back here and not blow this first fight. You got to look at this as a 2-fight proposition. But because Don and Mike and all those other guys like Rory Holloway and John Hearn, they're not giving you a shot to get past the 3rd round. In the rematch clause, I can get you everything you want and more because they don't think that's ever going to happen. You got to get to the first fight. Evander actually said, you know what? You're right. He goes, I'm going dancing. I'll see you later. So they had like this marathon meeting, and Jim Thomas actually twice said he had to excuse himself from Don's office and then go into the dance club where the bouncer had to let him in. He had to discuss something with Evander, and he went right back upstairs. But that's how they got the deal done. So November of 1996, Holyfield shocks the world. He beats Tyson. And then for the rematch, which ended up being the bike fight. Now think about this. In 1997, Evander Holyfield was guaranteed $30 million before pay-per-view upside.
Wow.
That's gambling on yourself. That is the value of a win.
But you know what? Holyfield sacrificed so he could get that, and that's what.
Right. No one does that anymore. Everyone looks at everything as a lottery ticket or a final annuity payment.
Well, that's what I wanted to communicate.
Devin Haney sacrificed himself.
That's what I wanted to communicate, that the way that all these guys negotiate fights now, it's almost like a fire sale. Like, we're going out of business and everything must go, so we're trying to get as much as we can. That's how everybody negotiates when you're not thinking about the other side of the fight. I feel that's how Deontay Wilder and his team fumbled the bag with Anthony Joshua. That, listen, you go over there, you fight this guy, maybe you win or maybe you lose, but you still make more money in either scenario than you ended up making with Tyson Fury. And with him, you fucking lost. You lost.
You know, guys, Jules, the reason why part of the reason why Bivol got this fight May 7th, and Vadim talked about this, like I said, Steve, I made sure I didn't over-negotiate. I was not going to over-manage this. I knew that we were a risky fight. I knew our position, but I knew that Dimitri wanted the fight, and I knew we could win. And now they get to reap the benefits of that. They bet on themselves. Not enough guys do that.
Not enough guys.
No, they
And
don't.
I had a question for you, Steve. Piggybacking what Jules said earlier, how do you feel DAZN looks by losing the rights to the Joshua Usyk rematch?
No, it's not a good look. I've never seen a network say, we are now partners with AJ. He's a brand ambassador. He's inexorably tied to our network after he gets back from Sky Sports. Not a good look. That is not a good look. That's like saying, I'm getting married to my dream girl. She just has to go on her honeymoon first with his other husband, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, and like I was telling Jules, like on one hand, yeah, that looks bad for DAZN, but a lot of these other promoters, their allegiances to the network and not to the fighter. And here's an example of Eddie's fiduciary duty is to the client. And even Usyk in this rematch is getting more than Tyson Fury's last two fights combined.
Yes, it is very true. Business is business. But guys, going back to Spence Crawford real quickly, look, that fight's supposed to be happening in late November. I have been told by other people within the boxing industry that, Steve, the way Al Heyman does this, he actually says, Steve, I wouldn't panic yet because we still have some time. I always thought it was strange that Coppinger reported that they were on the verge of a deal. I was told by someone directly, and Jules, I sent you some information on that correspondence that there was actually nothing in terms of progress at that point 6 weeks ago. I don't think any significant steps have been made since then. But I do believe that there was an attempt to corner or to pressure or leverage Crawford into taking a deal that was very unfavorable to him. And I don't think his personal pride, for better or worse, would allow that. But until we get to, like, let's say early, I would say mid-September, and there's not like significant, like verifiable proof of negotiations, that's when I would get worried because we're still in the middle of summer, guys. Yeah. I'm going to remain hopeful, but I have to tell you guys, Julius and guys like you and Coach Malachi, you guys are going to have some humdingers of some shows if this fight doesn't take place in 2020.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I've maintained for a long time that this could end up being another fight that got away. But I also heard from someone claims to be in the know, won't give up who. He said, don't worry about it. The fight's going to get done. And I'm going to take it at face value. Like, I'm not going to, you don't see me talking about Crawford and Spence too much, and it's because of that I'm like, look, let's see. It's summer now. There's a lot of big news. And what I was told was that they wanted to wait till this month to announce anything, if they're going to announce anything, because there was too much stuff getting announced last month, like Canelo versus Golovkin 3 and Joshua versus Usyk 2. They wanted to wait for the smoke to settle on that stuff. That's what I was told. So I'm like, all right, well, yeah. If that's the case.
Let me ask a question right quick. I want to ask one question.
Yeah.
So Eddie Hearn went to the Saudis and got the money for this fight, correct?
Yep.
Which means it's their fight. They bought it, correct?
Yep.
So that means that Sky Sports had to buy the rights for this fight from them, correct?
Not all the rights, just the UK rights. UK rights. They're still,
exactly. You see where I'm going. You see where I'm going, right, Joe?
Yeah. What it looks like, the Sky paid $28 million for the UK rights to the fight, and I don't know that the Saudis won't choose to also auction off the rights in Canada, in America. But what I see is when DAZN, I honestly believe, when DAZN announced this global landmark partnership, right, the reason they did that was to deter anyone who wanted to bid on the fight because they knew this fight's going to be on the open market soon. Maybe we announce that he's going to be our global partner, and that will dissuade people from bidding on the fight because they don't have him under contract. His future is with us. I believe they did that as a deterrent. It didn't work, because Sky still ended up bidding on the fight. But if they announced that, as useless as that announcement was, that's why I think they made it. They wanted to deter anybody from bidding on the fight because Joshua moving forward will be under contract with DAZN. It doesn't matter if he loses, but that's the situation.
But that's what that's where I'm going with this. And that's where I'm going with this, right? People are saying, "Well, the fight's not going to be shown here." Don't be so sure, because one thing I know about the Saudis, is they've been making money a long time.
And as you just said, one at a time, country, one at a time.
As you just said, Jules, they paid $28 million for the UK rights, correct?
Yep.
That's already 25% of their money back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they're shrewd, man. They gonna sell the rights to probably DAZN. Somebody's gonna get that fight, and we're gonna be able to watch it here.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's going to be shown in the U.S. I would not worry about that.
By who,
that's
though?
not even a concern.
By
who? Well, I mean, I'll put it this way.
Does it matter?
No. Just the conversation. Just the conversation piece. How does it reflect on DAZN if you're supposed to have the inside track on Matchroom and Matchroom fighters, but you don't have Matchroom's biggest fight this year? It is bad optics.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
It is, it is. And to play, the funny thing is somehow Eddie gets blamed for this when he's doing what a promoter's supposed to do, is get his fighter the most money.
Well, that and what people are confusing is, while this is bad optics for DAZN, this is not bad optics for Matchroom. Matchroom just made over $80 million. They got their money already. It's up to the Saudis what they want to do with the rights now. But as far as Matchroom, they already cashed in on the fight, bro. They got $80-something million for the goddamn thing. And now the Saudis want to auction off the rights. Are they going to auction off the U.S. rights? I don't know. That depends on whether or not ESPN or Showtime feel like bidding on that fight. If they don't, then it ends up on DAZN, and it's still a win for them, because I guarantee you, this fight is going to get watched. All Anthony Joshua's fights, they get watched. All of them.
And like you and Steve say, and like you and Steve have been saying, Jules, it's jealousy between this and Angel investing money going into Matchroom, potentially a potential IPO 5 years down the line. Like, Eddie's so far ahead, and like you said, Jules, they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. This fight is ESPN's boxing budget.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's simple. Like, if the situation is being treated, I see, by those who don't understand, as if it's a loss for Matchroom. No, it's not a loss for Matchroom. It's a loss for DAZN. But it's not a loss for Matchroom, because Matchroom literally just made their money when they sold those rights. They made their money. What y'all want to do with them rights now? Hey, that's on y'all, man. Do your thing. Get your money. You paid us $80-something million. See who you could get it back with. But it's not a loss for Matchroom.
That's the question. And that's the thing that kills me, because you hear all these other people, I'll just say people, saying how AJ's this, he's terrible, he's bad, he's unwatchable, this, that, and the other. Well, riddle me this, Batman. Why is he 2 or 3 times richer than all of you guys put together?
Right.
Exactly.
I have a question, because I've been waiting patiently to be called, but I seem to be like the bastard stepchild of the ring IQ debate.
There's like 9 people here, all talking at once.
I never got the link earlier, man. I'm just saying. No, I just want to ask a quick question with regards to the US and the Canadian rights, right? If, for instance, Showtime or ESPN or USA or whatever networks, Fox, bid for this fight, how do you think they would market it, considering the amount that they've shitted on AJ over the last few years with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder? Would they go the Usyk route, or would they just do a big U-turn on AJ?
I don't believe that the U.S. broadcasters are as keen on paying big cash for this fight as DAZN would. You understand that it's different in the UK. That's where the bulk of the cash is going to come from. So of course you want to get those rights. But in America, you're talking about a Ukrainian and a Brit. That's what you're talking about.
Right, and Jules, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be an afternoon fight in the U.S. That right there hampers a lot of the potential marketing and the viewership here.
You know, whereas for DAZN, the incentive is still there for DAZN because, well, this is what you do. You know, you show boxing matches around the world. So those U.S. rights, they still have value to you. But if you're top rank in ESPN, we're not going to pay through the nose to show a fight that's going down in the afternoon. We're not going to pay through the nose. That's the emphasis. We're not going to pay through the nose to show a fight that's happening in the afternoon. And what the Saudis would want us to do, if they auction off those rights in America to somebody, they're going to want to pay through the nose. They want the fight to go to the highest bidder. Well, that ain't us because we're not going to pay the nose.
And conservative estimates for, like, just for example, the North American rights, it's going to be at least half of what the UK paid.
Perhaps. You also have new subscribers to think about. That guys that don't normally, you know, maybe they don't have an annual DAZN subscription, or maybe they're just not subscribed at all. They might subscribe for that month for that fight. And there's value in that. That okay, well, I want to see Anthony Joshua get his ass beat again. Let me subscribe for the month. And it's like a mini pay-per-view situation to where you pay that $20 for that month. You don't really care about the rest of the month. You're really just paying to see that fight. But that makes it like a mini $20 pay-per-view in America. So there are those that revenue to consider as well. I don't know how much revenue there is in that, but I think there's some, because not everybody watches the flyweights. Like, not everybody watches Bam Rodriguez or Chocolatito. But a big heavyweight fight, yeah, it gets attention. It will. It's just that because it's in the afternoon, if you're Bob, I'm not going to give you guys a small fortune for an afternoon fight just to get those rights. Think
about this. The Klitschko Joshua fight was in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
On Showtime.
No,
I HBO.
Right now,
they made it. No, that was on Showtime, bro.
Wait, let me tell Shelton. Let me tell you what Showtime and HBO paid a piece for those rights. You know what it was? $1 million. $1 million from Showtime. Yeah, it was $1 million from Showtime and $1 million from HBO. It wasn't 28 million.
No, it wasn't that. But everybody watched it.
Pay-per-view.
That was a great fight, and everybody watched it.
Exactly.
It wasn't pay-per-view. It was on regular Showtime. It was
regular Showtime. And but you see what I mean? The monetary value that you sold the UK rights for $28 million. Now, I don't think somebody in America is going to give you that or half that even. You know, I don't. Not for an afternoon fight in Saudi Arabia with a Ukrainian and a Brit. You know you just spent money, and I talked about this the other day, Steve, that Fury versus White was a big fight, but because the pot got inflated, you didn't get to make money because that was not a $41 million fight. That was a $25 million fight or a $30 million fight. But in order to beat Eddie, you had to bid generously. To keep those rights, you had to pour a lot of money in the pot that probably really wasn't there, that didn't represent the actual market value of the fight. And you lost money because that's not a $41 million fight.
No, it's not. And you know, it's funny. I went to a bar in L.A. right outside the L.A. Live. It's called a Tom's Watch Bar. It's right across the street from the Staples Center. And they said, we're going to have no cover charge. Watch the afternoon pay-per-view. Literally, my party of 5 or 6 was about half the audience that afternoon. Honestly, it really was. And I was like, wow. So, but you're right. And that was a case of one faction overpaying another faction who put in a bid to protect the platform. And again, this is where promoters cannot take fighters across the street, because if you have made a commitment for a fighter to be on a network and be one of the flagship fighters, it's a bad look, and it does very, very uncomfortable things for that relationship when other fights or other fighters that have been paid millions of dollars by a network go across the street. It could really hamper a relationship. And that's where this business really lacks reality. Because you're right, Julius. That fight, in all due reality, no matter what the live gate was, not a $41 million fight.
It's just not. And where Frank originally priced the fight, I said it on repeat many times. You should have given Dillian an extra 3 or an extra 5 off the top, because that would have been a cheaper alternative than having to bid $41 million just to keep the rights. If you're pricing the fight at 25 and $5 million extra can shut Dillian up, then shut him up, give him the 5, and avert the purse bid. No, you wanted to play hardball. You ended up bidding $41 million for a fight that is not worth $41 million. So once again, and I talked about this extensively yesterday on Twitter, Fury lost Top Rank a lot of goddamn money. And he lost Frank money. And nobody likes to admit it, but yeah, all he's done since his return is lose people money. That's all he's done. They didn't.
I got to go out to dinner here, man. I had fun. You everyone have a good weekend.
You too, Steve. Glad to have you on.
You too, sir.
Have
a Zima. Have a
Enjoy your dinner, man. Take care,
yeah,
brother.
Zima on ice, the nectar of the gods. I'll absolutely have one for you guys. Have a good time, guys. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, well,
to the point that
now you said something interesting, Jules. Go ahead.
To the point that I was making, that remember, the Valine fight didn't bring in $1 million. The Schwartz fight didn't bring in $1 million. Bruce Trampler himself said they lost money on the Wilder versus Fury 2 pay-per-view, and the Wilder versus 3 pay-per-view, that one, the third fight, that sold less than the second fight. So if you go backwards in time and look at all of Fury's fights, all you've done since you returned was fuck off people's money. That's it. You didn't make anybody any money.
Jules, I was going to ask this to Steve just before he left, but seeing as he's going to ask you, right, so you know that DAZN have got their pay-per-view function now, right? And you've got Canelo on the US side, and then supposedly they're going to have Joshua on the UK side. Okay, if Canelo, unfathomable as it may be to a lot of people, if Canelo loses to Golovkin in this next fight, and Joshua loses to Usyk in this next fight, which isn't even on DAZN, do you think that their whole pay-per-view functionality now becomes null and void for these boxers?
No. Honest to God, no. Because they still command an audience. Remember, if you're a fighter that can sell at least 300,000 pay-per-view buys, right? At least 300,000. You belong on pay-per-view. 300, 350,000. So if Canelo were to lose to Golovkin, do I think we throw the whole fighter away? Not necessarily. Do I think the same is true with Joshua? No. Look at Amir Khan and Kell Brock. Those guys were well past their prime. They were over the hill, but their pay-per-view still sold.
Yep.
So I can't say that just because it would be a bad look. It would be terrible optics if two of the biggest names you have on either side of the Atlantic Ocean lose. It would be bad optics. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not saying it's not. But does that take away all the marquee value they have? No. After Oscar lost to Felix Trinidad, he was still on pay-per-view after that. You know what I mean? Like, shit, after he fucking lost to fucking Hopkins up there at 60, he was still on pay-per-view after that.
Fair enough.
Jules, you made a good point about the network contention. And Jules, why would DAZN make that deal with AJ, knowing that the Saudi relationship with Eddie is because of the DAZN's owner? So do you think he knew that they could lose the fight? And why make that deal, though?
I'll say this. I maintain that the announcement that they made was intended to dissuade potential bidders, because what they wanted the people that would bid on the fight to ask themselves is, why should we pay through the nose for a fighter we don't have under contract? I believe that that's why they made the announcement, that it's a significant deal only if he wins. But the only reason you announced it was because you didn't want people to bid on the fight, even though you knew this fight's going to be on the open market. And Sky's going to bid on it. So how do we stop Sky from doing that? Or how do we get them to think twice about doing it? Let's announce we've got AJ under contract for the duration of his career beyond this fight. And maybe that will dissuade them from bidding on it. But like I said, it didn't work. Sky still bid on the fight.
And here's what I don't understand about that. Okay, we know Sky's going to bid on that because they're desperate to get a box office event. They don't have much in their stable that they can put on box office right now.
Chris Eubank Jr. Come on.
Well, no, because he's Wasserman, technically.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But what I was gonna say, like, okay, so but in the zones thing, they've got they're guaranteeing AJ $100 million, £100 million, whichever it is, every year, like for 2 fights or whatever it is. So why wouldn't they, if that was the case, why wouldn't they just then decide to overbid on this one as well, seeing as they've already like overbid on everything else? If this is a really bad way to start this relationship, so you might as well take the loss on this one,
Well, that
regardless of what
depends
happens.
And brother, that's why I think stuff that we're not privy to behind the scenes with other businesses going on, because the owner of the zone and the Saudis have other business dealings together, other 9-figure business dealings other than boxing. So it could be a
what I
favor
was
to
going to say
them.
was that AJ losing that fight. Whose mic is that? AJ losing that fight might cause them to reevaluate their strategy. So before we blow any more money on this guy, let him come through this fight. If he comes through, he's our guy. But right now, we didn't lose anything. We're not the ones that are paying all this crazy money for his next purse or Usyk's next purse. That's the Saudis paying that, not us. We're not going to hemorrhage funds. That's what it kind of looks like to me, that they trimmed the fat in the sense that Matchroom sold the rights to the fight, and it was at no expense to DAZN. DAZN's not losing any money, and that's what I see, that even though they don't have the rights to the fight and they don't get to capitalize off what it does, they're not losing or spending any money on it either. All the money is coming from the Saudis.
And like you, to add to what you're saying, Jules, there's got to be protections in that contract. Okay, this is what you get paid if you lose. This is what you get paid if you win going forward.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like the deal that they struck with AJ is a best case scenario deal that services as a safety net to where if you come through this, we got you. You're our guy. And imagine what his stock will be if he wins. But if he loses, it's no sweat off our backs because you didn't cost us a fortune for your last fight anyway. Like, it's like, yes, it's a loss, but it's a calculated loss to where, look, do we want to hemorrhage more money to get AJ's next fight? No, the Saudis already did that at no risk to us. Granted that it's not good optics that we're not going to be the ones that show the fight, but it's not costing us anything either. We're already spending money on Canelo. We're spending money on him.
And that's why I fuck with this channel, because Jules sees all the chess. This is not a game of checkers. There's intricate parts to this deal. There's moving pieces. It's not just like, oh, they lost. Like, no, that's not how business works. These are billionaires doing billion-dollar deals.
For example, I'll give you an example, Drew. The money that was put up for Fury versus White, right? That's Bob Arum and Frank's money. That's their money that got lost because they're the ones that put it up. This is a different situation entirely because the financing for this fight, it didn't come from Matchroom. It came from the Saudis.
And where I get annoyed, Jules, is people, when I made that comment about what you were saying, they're like, you need to learn the business of boxing. I'm like, you're talking about a structure that is not existent in this deal. Bob Arum and Frank Warren aren't selling rights. They're not making deals like this. So what you know about the boxing business is irrelevant when it comes to this specific deal.
You talking about Rick Glacier?
Glacier, all the guys that thought they knew what was going on. I'm like, bro, that's not how this deal's done.
I mean, with Rick's thing is, look, Rick, for the most part, a lot of stuff he says checks out, but not when it comes to Matchroom. Like, nah, it doesn't, because Bob's not selling rights to fights. Like, no, you're the rights to your fights, for example, in the UK, they're already sold because you struck a deal with Sky. So you don't have the option to go, let's say, do something like this to where you auction off the rights to the highest bidder. That's what Matchroom did. Saudi was willing to put up close to $100 million for the rights. He gave it to him. What they decide to do with those rights is up to them now, but Matchroom has already made their money, where Bob has to get a budget from ESPN to the tune of $100 million or whatever it is. Matchroom just got that for one fight. For one.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jules. When Eddie struck this deal with DAZN initially, AJ was always off limits. He wasn't tied to them exclusively, whereas Bob and Bob's deal with ESPN is for Top Rank. It's not the individual fighters that have network deals with ESPN. It's the outfit. So
Rick doesn't spend any time.
Bob could do the same. Yeah, what I was saying, Jules, real quick. Bob could do the same thing if he wanted to sell the rights. He just doesn't have the relationships Eddie has.
Well, it's not just the relationships. It's not just the relationships. It's that you don't have a fight. that would do that. Like and this is why I always go in on these guys. They're like, yo, you acting like Bob got a fight that he could make that's worth 80 million. No, you don't. Before you go telling me
you would say about both outfits you've been saying, Jules.
Yeah, like before you tell me that, Eddie, like I remember Alexis said this and I laughed because I'm like, see, you just on some bias shit. You called Eddie an accidental promoter. You say that the guy doesn't really know what he's doing. And I kind of laughed at that because I'm like, well, Bob doesn't have a fight that anybody wants to pay $80 million for. So are you sure? Are you sure? Were you sitting here singing Bob's praises? And I do love Top Rank. Don't get it twisted. But your investment in Fury is a joke. You didn't make any money off him, and now you can't even make any money off him because he can't come to America. Why don't you guys that love pointing out people's failures talk about how Top Rank can't do shit with this guy in America because of his ties to Daniel Kinahan? How all he's done for Top Rank since they signed him is lose money. They were hoping to recoup that money in the Wilder versus Fury 2 fight, and what did Bruce Trampler say? They still lost money. In the third fight, it sold less than the second fight, so they still lost money. You guys got into a pissing contest with Eddie, and the piss got on your pants because you inflated the value of the fight to a point where it ain't worth $41 million, my guy. Y'all did too much to keep the rights to that fight. All you really had to do, which is what I said from the beginning, give Dillian the extra 5 and take your ego out of it. It's better that you pay 30 mil for the fight than 41. You can hit 30 mil. You can't hit 41 mil, bro.
They won't
And
acknowledge
like you
because
said, Jules, who's paying these guys 80 million for a fight? Matchroom has $200 million fights back to back. And if the A sides win, their next fights after these fights are another $100 million fights.
That's the point that I was making to Alexis, and that's the point that I make to a lot of these guys that I see what's going on. I see what it's about. They resent AJ for being as successful as he is because they don't think he should be worth what he's worth. But I don't give a fuck about the word should. I only care about what is. This guy, when he fights, the world watches. I don't give a shit if you like it or not. It's the truth. There's nobody in Saudi Arabia. Don't you think Frank would have took the goddamn fight to Saudi if he could have got $80 million? Of course he would have. Fury versus White fight. Of course he would have.
In a
heartbeat. But they don't want you.
The funny thing is, you don't know how many women have asked me, well, when's the AJ fight? That's one of the big reasons people hate on AJ, because women pay to watch him fight too.
You know, it's in other words, it's silliness. What you have, and I'm gonna be honest. A lot of guys that really like Fury, that they're a little bit fanatical about the guy, right? Take a good long look at who those guys are. Take a look at how they look. I'm being serious. Look at the guy named Asylum Tommy on Twitter. Take a good long look at this fucking physical specimen, and you can see why he doesn't. You can see why he loves Fury. Fury's his dream come true. That I could be a fat slob and not take care of myself and get arrested for biting people in Birmingham. I'm like, bro, you're like, I see what the appeal is.
I'll go even further, Jules. For guys like you and me, Ron Boy, I don't hate, like, guys that get money and actually are successful in their day-to-day. We don't knock these other fighters that get their money. Like, go ahead.
No. Why would we?
You know, it's in other words, and I said this in the live yesterday that we had with Yogi. Shout out to Yogi. First time got to talk to her. That they turned it into an ego thing to where they're trying to keep up with AJ and they're trying to keep up with the marquee value and the revenue that he generates. And you can't. You know why? Here's a hard pill to swallow. People don't like you that much, Fury. They never did. You were never a big hit in the UK, bro, even after you beat Vlad. Hell, they liked you even less after you beat Vlad. Base, am I wrong?
Nope.
And then to prove the point, Jules, AJ could come over here, sell out MSG with a replacement guy because the UK supported him and believed in him. They didn't feel that way about Fury. That's why he couldn't fill the Vegas against Tom Schwartz.
They'd be flying over here just to support him and fill up the stadium. That's how much they like him.
And they don't like.
And that was my point. Even after getting his ass mollywopped by Usyk, he still comes out on top.
See what I mean? I'm like, I'm not talking about Fury's boxing. This is why they try to keep it about Fury's boxing when we have a different kind of conversation. Bro, I don't give a shit if you think Fury's right up there with Muhammad. I don't care where you rank him. And I'm being honest, the only ranks I care about are mine, right? But when we have this conversation, how did Top Rank's investment with Fury panned out? Well, there's the problem. It didn't pan out. You didn't make them any money. You didn't. You lost their money. You made it very difficult for them to break even, right? And now you can't even come back to America, so they can't use you. All they can do is, stream whatever fight you have wherever else in the fucking world you are, but they can't really turn over a profit on you. And if we backtrack, Tom Schwartz,
914 48th Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom Schwartz under $1 million at the gate. Otto Valine under $1 million at the gate. But that's not what they were paying you. They paid you multi-millions for those fights.
But Jules, the thing is that AJ is a global boxing star. These other guys aren't.
Yeah, but that's the point. Know your role and stay in your lane. Know your role and stay in your lane.
Let me ask you this, Jules. When those fights lose money, does that comes out of the budget, not Bob's personal money, that comes out of the annual budget?
Yeah, that's where it comes from. It's not like Bob's dipping into his savings to pay for you. Like, I hope not. I hope not.
And to add to that, them losing all that money, them losing all that money is why we haven't gotten certain fights from Top Rank.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far because, look, Top Rank is doing a good job doing what they're doing. But what people don't like to hear, and what really, I guess, bothers them, is that Top Rank is not operating on the level of Matchroom. It's the truth. You don't have an $83 million fight to sell. You don't even have the option of putting a fight like that on the market because you don't have a fight like that to make. The best fight that you can make right now, Devin Haney versus Lomachenko. Best fight you can make. Is that an 83 million? No. No. Of course not. No. That's a $20 million fight at best. At best.
And you lost Crawford, so you don't have that fight to put on. You don't have that.
And you don't want to make Better Bivol.
Now think about this. The true value of Better Bivol is not in America. It's not in the UK. It's in Russia. That fight means more to them than it means to us. So, and obviously, you don't want to do the goddamn fight in Russia. So you look at another fight. Shelton just mentioned it. Crawford and Spence. I love Crawford and Spence as a fight. Don't misunderstand me. But if that fight were really on the level of a Canelo versus Golovkin, we'd see Saudis bidding on it. Do we see Saudis bidding on it? No, we're hearing gripes about $20 million. Bro, Saudi wipe his ass with $20 million. If this fight was what they're making it out to be, there would be foreign investors lining up around the block to get the goddamn fight. But they're not. Why? Because it's not that big.
There'd be American investors as well.
And I say this all the time, and people think I'm crazy, but it's the truth. The reason the fight's not that big is because neither one of those guys are as popular as they think they are.
Exactly.
Right. No, exactly. It goes back to what Jules was saying. How many years did PBC spend tearing down Terrence Crawford's value?
Yeah. I mean, you literally told a boxing audience to the point where they believed it because they do believe it. Spence's fans, they do believe it. The Crawford's no good, didn't fight anybody. Well, how do you expect to muster up value and revenue by telling the audience, that guy sucks, he didn't fight anybody?
They even devalued his belt, claimed they claimed that Gervonta Davis was more of a champion than he was.
And they ate it up. The audience ate it up because if you talk to these guys and you talk about the greatness, because I think he's great. I think he's fucking great. Terrence Crawford, hero, goddamn hero.
Well, you know what I was seeing on Twitter? They think Devin Haney's run's more impressive to Undisputed than Terrence Crawford's.
And bear in mind, this is their consumer base that they told these things, and their consumer base ate it up. So when you try to turn to that consumer base now, after you do a 180, right? Now you want to do the fight. Well, you told those consumers that this guy's not worth nothing. You didn't generate excitement and interest. You didn't do that the last 4 years. You belittled and berated this guy the last 4 years. You told these people, Errol doesn't need him. He's got Ugas. He's got Danny Garcia. He doesn't need him. So how the fuck are you supposed to have synergy? There's an element in boxing that doesn't often get talked about, and it's an intangible. Every fight doesn't have it. Every fight that is a good fight. The energy a fight creates when you put two guys together. And the closest I saw this fight to having that synergy and that energy was when Crawford confronted Spence. You couldn't, everybody was talking about it. Was beautiful. And that was when you were supposed to do the fight. You didn't do that. You wanted to drag this out. Mikey Garcia, car accident, Sean Paul. Like, bro, what are you doing? That's how I know you didn't want to make the fight. And I said it yesterday. Tim Smith started this year that we're in right now, their VP of communications. He said nobody's going to buy this fight. That's what he said. That's not me, the YouTuber, saying that. He said
and that's the point I was going to go to. Tim Smith told you in the beginning of the year, what's holding this fight up is the economics. People don't the consumer base of this fight, and I'm gonna be honest here. The main people who are gonna buy this fight are African American. I'm a black man, and most African Americans don't buy pay-per-views; they stream. Tim Smith knows
to echo your point.
That's why he told you that, because he knows that I can't get
your point.
500, 700 pay-per-views out of this fight. I won't get it.
To echo your points, like I told Julius, I was in Texas for the Spence Garcia fight at a family party. It was an African American family party. I was the only one that offered to pay for the fight, and the house full of folks in Errol's home state said, "Nah, we could stream it."
Let me say this.
There it is.
Let me say this. The African American consumer is a strong consumer, just not in boxing. That's reality. If you look at other things that African Americans buy in America, that's a strong consumer base if you can tap into it. But when you pit them against each other, when you don't, in other words, if you told them, you know, Crawford's a great fucking fighter. You have two great African American homegrown fighters that are pound for pound elite great fighters. If you told them that, this fight and buying it means something different. But you didn't do that. If it was me, if it's just me and my imagination, this is a Juneteenth fight. I got to get this one over the line by Juneteenth to show the black excellence. That's not what y'all told people.
That's why I fuck with you, Julius, because you're a smart guy, man. You're a smart guy.
But isn't it the truth? Like, you want to show black excellence? If you want to show black excellence in America, show them Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr., two homegrown American fighters, pound for pound elite guys in today's boxing era on Juneteenth or Juneteenth weekend. No, you told them for 4 years that a 3-division, undisputed, 2-time lineal, 2-time Ring Magazine champion ain't worth a damn. We ain't even going to put them in our graphics. That's what you told them, and they believe
that. You do that,
exactly.
Jules. You do Black History Month. Hell, you make a fight weekend around Muhammad Ali's birthday as an anniversary, and you know, like, it's not rocket science.
But Stephen
you put two Black American fighters on Muhammad Ali weekend's birthday, showing the excellence. That fight sells.
Let me tell you something. A lot of times, what irritates me about today's boxing market, I already know which is the preeminent consumer in boxing today in this era, but that's not to say that you can't galvanize the black fight fans as well. Yes, you can, because I saw that with a fight that I didn't even think was a huge fight at the time, but it did very well. And that was Floyd fucking Mayweather versus Shane Mosley. A million pay-per-views sold, all right?
Yes.
A million.
Yes. You know why? And do you know why? Because they didn't pit the fan bases against each other.
Exactly. It was just a fight. Shane just beat the holy fuck out of Margarito, right? The boogity man. He just beat the fuck out of him before that, all right? So you had the stage for the fight. And it's because of dinosaurs, because that's what the fuck he is. It's because of dinosaurs like Stephen Espinoza. You got money for Munguia? You got money for Canelo? But you don't have money for, you telling me that you don't know how to put together a 20-minute featurette that will have people clawing at their faces for this fight. I'm not bullshitting you. I'm not bullshitting you, and I'm not tooting my own horn. If I had the rights to do a promo featuring Top Rank footage, this is the only reason I don't do it. I don't have the rights to use Top Rank's footage of Terrence Crawford. I don't have the rights to use Errol's footage from PBC. But if I did, I could put together a 7-minute promo that would sell this fight, because the key element is music. It's scoring the featurette. And I'm like, yo, you got a whole network executive. You have a whole network. You have whole camera crews. You have the rights to do this. And you haven't figured it out yet. You are a fucking bozo. You're a bozo.
Now, Jules, would you add Hans Zimmer to that score, like the early PBC videos?
No, I'd go to my go-to. I would go to my go-to for great scoring that really, look, it only takes 30 seconds to hit a nerve with how you score something. Like when you score something, it's a matter of seconds. It's all about timing. And I've said this before. Timing is everything, but especially in film, when the music hits and you see a guy, it evokes emotion. That's all you need to sell this fight. That's it. When you Terrence Bud, that's all you need. But these fucking bozos that sit in these positions I'm like, yo, stop. Like, fam, you an idiot. You stupid. You haven't figured out that, look, if I'm him, I take the gamble. Look, I'm gonna give Terrence what he wants. I'm gonna give Terrence, if he wants 15, here you go, Terrence, 15. Errol, you want 20? Fuck it, 20. We're gonna sell the living hell out of this fight. From now till November, we're gonna take the gamble, because if you put that much money in the pot, it becomes a gamble. It's risky to do it. But if you sell it, well, it's not risky anymore. Now you have an incentive to push. Sell the fight. Sell the fight. I need Crawford on Power 105. I need Spence on BET. I need him on ESPN. I'm moving these guys like, yo, y'all want y'all money? Go get it. Go get it. All right?
Julius,
and this is one of those situations. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they've gotten so into the whole black versus Hispanic only thing, and and it is a shame that they forgot you can make money in the black American market. You really can. And like you said, Floyd versus Mosley is
Can't
proof
hear
of
anything.
That.
Not just Floyd versus Mosley either. Tyson versus.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Tyson versus Holyfield.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, exactly.
Tyson, I even go to the MMA community when John Jones fought Rampage Jackson. That was a $700,000 pay-per-view buy.
My family was going crazy over that, and they're not even like hardcore MMA fans.
It's not that. In other words, it's not a myth that the preeminent consumer is a Chicano. No, that's not a myth. That's reality. The myth is that black people don't spend money. That's the myth. That's a myth. You know that, right? That's not true.
I can tell you what was even bigger than Jones versus Rampage was Jones versus DC. That shit was damn near
Cormier.
Yeah. Cormier.
Right? The myth, see, when you see me talk to these guys on Twitter, right? And you see me say that they don't spend money, that's not a generalization. I'm talking about you that has so much to say. You don't spend money on this shit. But the myth is that black folks don't spend money. No, they spend money. Well, like, what the fuck? Huh? They don't spend, like, huh? No, they spend money. Your problem is you don't know what you're doing. You trashed Crawford. How are you supposed to sell the fight then if you trash him? How does that work? That's how I know. That's how I know it wasn't your intention to make the fight, because you didn't build the fight. You destroyed it.
I said the same thing earlier today, Julius. How are you going to get casuals to buy a fight when you spent the last 3.5 years telling people that the other guy ain't got a shot in hell to win?
You literally you started the year off, this year that we're in. You started off, they're not going to buy this fight. They're not going to. So you already told me what you've been doing for 4 years with that statement. You already told me everything. Reality is, if you want to, like you look at fights, I'm gonna give you an example. Let's go out of boxing for a second. Let's look at what is his name? Peele. He's been doing a lot of movies. They've been making a lot of money. You know what I mean? He did Get Out. He did the one with the doppelgangers, that the lady, she's got like a clone that's been living underground. You look at Tyler Perry as a filmmaker and the core demographic that has made him rich. Because, let's be honest, it's not Spanish folks that are paying to watch all those movies. You understand? There's money there. You just have to tap into it. And bozos like Stefan Espinosa, they don't know how. You don't know how. You don't know what you're doing. You don't. If you've been paying attention you know what you were doing, but you literally don't. And it only takes a few seconds to sell this thing. You just are so. It's like if you got a joint, right? And she bad, she got long legs and a fat old ass and the titties and the face and the hair, and you just got like a thumb for a dick. You shouldn't even have that joint. That should not be your joint. You should not have that opportunity. You need someone.
Now, does she have? What do her areolas look like though?
She got the big dinner plate nipples, the big joints. Big old flapjacks. You know what I'm saying? And it's a situation to where you have all the ingredients to sell it, but you, in your ineptitude and all your inadequacies and your lack of imagination and business savvy, you literally trashed the fight at a time when it's great to be a black man in America. It's a great time. Don't you see? It's not just sports, it's movies, it's music. It's a great time to capitalize on a black audience right now. And you, because you're such a fucking bozo, you ruined the goddamn fight. Telling your core consumer, well, he sucks. He's WBO. Who needs a WBO? Who needs it? This is not even a real belt.
And you know why they did that, don't you?
Well, I know because of the lawsuit thing. PBC, Heyman.
No.
Uh-oh.
Heyman, I think the people in charge of Spence knew this ain't a good matchup.
No. Oh, you know, Shelton. Like, if we're gonna get into the boxing, Derek James knows what time it is.
Can we please, bro? Can we talk about this style?
Well, no. Like Jules was saying, the plan. This Jules was saying this adamantly. The plan was for Spence to fucking beat Pacquiao and move up, and that got fucked up.
Yep. Now you can't move him up because, one, he doesn't have a Pacquiao victory to serve as a launch pad for his ascent to 154. You didn't get to capitalize off of that. Two, if you move him up to 54 now, there are no fights at 54 at this time that have the same value a Crawford fight might. Even now, a Crawford fight is still worth more than any fight you can make for him up there. Also, he'll get beat up there, and you fucking know it. You fucking know it. You don't have the punching power to keep Brian off you. You don't. You don't.
Him.
And
the saddest thing is, if they make this fight, he's gonna get beat at 47.
Exactly. That's how you know, Shelton. That's how you know it was never their intention to make this fight. Everything they've done in the last 3 or 4 years has been to not make the fight.
And Shelton,
they skated around
this was the plan, to move him up, and boom, he fights Keith Thurman for a vacant. He fights Danny Garcia for a vacant. And that's what was supposed to happen. Recycled all those other matches.
Danny Garcia rematch at 54.
Just for vacant titles. And it's like, oh, he's conquering another division.
Bro, their fans would eat it up. Their fans would eat it up, and it's so sad. Like, this division has been plagued with B-level fighters besides Manny and Crawford, in my opinion. And these guys get credit for being competitive with one another, but always losing the bigger fights. Keith, you lost to a 39, 40-year-old.
Exactly.
You lost to a 40-year-old. Manny's great, but Keith, you like if that was Crawford in there, come on. And there's
still people, and there's still people that they'll try to sell you Keith as this great. Look, Keith is not Felix Trinidad. Keith is not Oscar. All right, Keith is not Mark Green. He's not that kind of welterweight. Like, he's not going down in history as that kind. No.
Like Jules. Does Keith beat Obakar? Does Keith beat Ike Corte?
Hell no.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Josecito Lopez almost stopped him. Let's not do this. This is a guy
who had to go through the gears with Soto Caras. You had to go through the gears with Soto Caras, bro.
Diego
Pacquiao. Here's another point.
Pacquiao was cruising against him. He was cruising against him.
Here's another point, fellas. Here's another point. This guy, this fucking guy, right? They said this guy, I'm talking about Ugas, who I respect. I do respect Ugas. I like him as a person. But you give this guy all this praise for beating a 43-year-old man coming off of a 2-year layoff.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
He was supposed to beat that old guy when he's been active.
He did what Keith should have did.
They were going to feed a 40-year-old Pacquiao to Spence, but Bob Arum didn't want to give a 37, 36-year-old Pacquiao to Crawford.
Exactly. I mean, like, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about how, you know, they love to take the piss from Eddie when all I know is Eddie can get it to Saudi money, but Bob can't. Because Bob tried to for Crawford versus Pacquiao, and he couldn't get the money. That's why the fight didn't happen in 2020, because he couldn't get the goddamn money.
Well, you know they're not going to do business with Bob, Jules.
I know. I'm just saying.
That war's been going on for a long time.
I'm just saying that don't tell me a story about how inadequate Matchroom and Eddie is when you can't when you're not pointing out that, you know, Bob tried to make friends with the same kind of people Eddie's friends with, and he couldn't get the scratch. You didn't deliver that fight. Fury's tenure at Top Rank did not result in an undisputed champion. Don't oversell me the Wilder fight to convince me that they're not inadequate. You are inadequate. You got invested in this guy, and you promoted this guy, and you didn't make any money. So don't bullshit me about who's the better promoter. That guy that you promoted did not make you any money.
Yep.
And the funny thing was when Arum was asked, like, oh, that Saudi money wasn't real for Fury. When the next day Fury's like, oh, I got off the phone with the Prince. Let's go.
And that's why they always try to rewrite history. Look, I try to avoid arguments with people that are inferior to me, like Fury's hillbilly fans, because they're inferior. Like, bro, you inferior to me, bro. I don't need to be talking to you about it. You fucking inferior to me, bro. All right.
That's
the truth is
big Capricorn energy right there.
I'm sorry, but look, Fury's a great boxer as far as his boxing. But if I'm not talking about his boxing, then I'm not fucking talking about his boxing. I'm talking about the fact that since he came back, all he did was lose people money. What? Because you're not popular. You're not as popular as you think you are. You're not. And a lot of that shit you said in the UK, they didn't forget. Those people still don't like you. That's why you were in such a hurry to come to America and reinvent yourself. Thought you could pull the wool over the Americans' eyes, not realizing, you know, they're really xenophobic. They're really xenophobic. They're never going to love you the way they'd love an American. I'm just letting you know. They're not. They would prefer it be an American. They would. Underneath it all, yes. If they had to choose between a freckly guy from the UK and a freckly guy from Oklahoma, they go Oklahoma. That's how their minds work. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's America. So you're never going to be that big hit here. You know what I mean? Lennox was an excellent boxer, fought everyone that needed to be fought in his era, but they never loved him. They never loved, and he was great, but they never loved him. They never loved him the way they loved Mike. I'll tell you that. They never did.
Yeah, hell no.
They never loved
Mike. Is my dad told me Mike was like a treasure. He looked at as like a fucking treasure.
I still look at him as a goddamn treasure, a once in a lifetime, 1 in a million human being. And they
because you'll never have an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid become the heavyweight champion again.
I'm telling you, he was supernatural in his heyday. And a lot of the Brits, they like to laugh at us because of how we look at Mike. But I'm just telling you, if Mike was a Brit, don't fucking bullshit me. 19 years old, beating the hell out of guys like that. You guys would build him a church. All right?
Yeah, they would.
Bro, look how hot they were about Josh Kelly, bro.
Exactly.
And Josh Kelly, Ted Cheeseman. Look at these motherfuckers over Conor Benn.
Ted Cheeseman.
I like Ted. I'm just being real that they laugh at us because, you know, and I actually don't think Mike's record is as bad as people make it. Like, no, it's not bad. Tell me, who else was 20 years old becoming heavyweight champion of the world? Nobody. He's the youngest.
Who says that? How can
Teddy Atlas?
Like, don't get me wrong. Later in his career, yeah, Mike was on a crazy downhill. Okay. But if you're talking about the guys that he beat when Mike was Mike,
he beat good guys. He beat good guys. He beat Frank Bruno. He took
Larry's. Oh,
No, he didn't take Larry's O. He took his. He was the first man to
Oh, yeah,
knock out Larry
my
Holmes.
bad. Michael Spinks is O. My bad. Spinks is O.
He
Yeah,
got,
He was the
he
first
got
guy to stop Larry.
back for
I don't care. I don't
Muhammad
care.
Ali.
I don't care. I'll put Customato, Rooney, Mike Tyson in there with anybody in any era, and I'll take my chances.
These motherfuckers trying to tell me that Fury is gonna jab Mike away.
Fact check me. A lot of Brits, and I love my Brits. I love them. But they'll tell you that Mike, he fought an old Larry. Larry was younger than Vladimir when Tyson beat him. Don't fucking bullshit me. It's the truth. When I tell you,
Larry didn't even do bad in that fight either.
The first question that they ask you about Mike is, what ATGs he beat? Larry's not an ATG? Oh, Larry was old. Larry was younger than Vlad was when Tyson Fury fought him.
Yep.
Listen, Larry didn't do bad in that fight early. That's
Larry didn't do bad after that fight. He beat fucking Ray Mercer.
He went out to exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Look what
he fucking Ray Mercer.
Michael Spence.
And the problem is with
he never lost.
The problem with Larry was the reason Mike don't get the love he does for beating Larry is because Larry had the unfortunate timing of being the proeminent heavyweight after Ali, and nobody liked Larry because he beat Ali. He shouldn't have been in that fight.
And then
Larry never got the love. Larry never got the love of a heavyweight champion.
Yeah, but when you sit here today, did Vladimir get the love of a heavyweight champion?
No.
Bro. So once again, let me make this point. Let me make this point. I never want to hear a Brit tell me that Larry was too old to be a good win for Mike when fucking Vlad was older than Larry was when he fought fucking Tyson Fury.
Right.
He's older.
Oh, they love that. They love that Vlad win because he's been lineal since then. Title defenses.
He wouldn't be the lineal champion if he hadn't fought a 37, 38-year-old Klitschko.
Listen. If Vladimir
and he
give
fucking
Vladimir
ducked
the
the
same
rematch.
resume but make him American, how do they praise him, Julius?
Exactly.
Hey,
All I'm saying.
Give Wilder his resume and accolades. Oh my God, he's the best ever.
And it's basically that I feel Mike gets an unfair shake. It is unfair. Like, it is. Yeah, he lost to Lennox. You telling me that, and I hate to say this because I don't want to sound like I'm shitting on Lennox. It's not that. I knew then it's over for Mike, bro. He's not what he was when I was young. I bet against him. I knew Lennox got him, bro. He gonna get him. Well, you know what I mean? So hold on. If you could qualify that win for Lennox, don't bullshit me about these other guys then, all right? Because we all knew then Mike was past his prime, bro. We knew, bro, it's a wrap, dog. He's not what he was. He not.
After Cuss died, people zeroed in on Mike, and he couldn't. He got hit like he just didn't know what hit him.
It's really when they chased Kevin Rooney away because Cuss died very early in his career, and it's really when Kevin Rooney wasn't around Mike anymore that the vultures came around and stuff like that because Kevin Rooney picked up where Cuss left off, and it was working for a while. It's not that it wasn't.
The wagons actually circled around them, and one thing I wanted to say, it's off topic, but I just wanted to say it really quick. Rest in peace, James Caan, and rest in peace, Tony Sirico.
Paulie Walnuts.
Yeah.
So it's fucked up. I like James Caan. Let me read the super chat. My weekend boxing picks: Frank Markin, Pavel Silly. I can't say that shit. Felix Cash, Israel Madrid.
He just gave up.
Still again.
Ramon Cardenas, Figueroa, Pulev, Beltran. Yeah, that's how I have that too. I got Mixayo beating Ray. I got Pulev beating Derek. I don't give a shit about Brandon Figueroa. I got Madrimov winning the rematch. My man Felix Cash, I got him winning too. It's like Lennox was great, but I don't think Lennox.
It's Pavel Siliagian.
I think Lennox was great. I think Lennox was great, but not because he beat Mike. You see what I mean? He was great. I think Lennox was great, but not because
that was just tying loose ends.
Yeah,
that was just tying loose ends, really. Like that. Like it was like a big money fight. Still, Lennox pretty much beat everybody else there was to beat. So Mike's there. That's a big fight. Fucking get your bread. That literally was a
Lennox is great
because they would have said he never fought Mike if he retired.
No, Yeah, exactly. Lennox is
said he
great.
waited
Lennox
for
is
Mike
all
to
time.
retire to come back
Had he
from
took
jail
that
and shit.
rematch with Vitali, it would have even made it even bigger.
Well,
Nah, he would have got beat in that rematch.
No, he would have got beat. He would have got beat. But then again, this is
He
why I
escaped.
don't.
People that he really escaped the first fight.
Yeah, but let's be honest too. That was the worst version of Lennox. That was a bad version of Lennox. So if we say,
Oh yeah, he was done. He was done.
If we say that they do a rematch and he has a full camp and he has the first fight to draw from to know that, look, I can't be asleep, but who knows? You know, that's why you don't hear me talk too bad about that. But it's more like, yeah, I think Lennox was great, also underrated and underappreciated, but not because he beat Mike. The Mike you fought, come on.
Yeah, like come on. That's like really, really praising Camacho for Leonard.
I would have liked to have seen. I would have liked to have seen Lennox.
Like you don't give Camacho the same credit you give Duran.
Exactly. Like, come on.
The prime Mike
at a certain point,
don't
matter.
Man.
So those things in mind, and that being said, it's been a good talk.
Old.
I'm old.
This has been a great one, Bob. This is a good one.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna go to sleep.
Hey, by the way, Jules, before you
we gotta
sign
get
off,
Tim
man,
on here, bro. We gotta get Tim back on here, Julius.
Hey, Jules, before you sign off, those were some great interviews you did with Ebony and with the other content creators and all that, man.
Look, I got Sonny coming through. He's gonna talk about the Martinez fight.
Yes.
Hey, we need to get Tim. We need to get Tim Cheeseman on. Can you get Tim Cheeseman?
Ted Cheeseman, and I don't think I'd understand how Ted talks because his accent is thick, bro. It's like talking to Anthony Fowler. Big Cheese. I fuck with the Big Cheese though. Like, look, I don't have no illusions about the Cheese, but he's a fun fucking fighter to watch.
He's an all-time great.
He's entertaining as hell, man.
He's all-time great.
Yeah,
bro, he's already an all-time great.
Yeah, ATG. So I catch y'all fellas on the slide. I'm out this motherfucker.
Have a good night, fellas. Jules, thanks for having me on, brother. Have a good night.